Friends, if you're looking for real old school laughs, you're in for a treat because we've got them right here. Flip City Magazine. Remember Mad Magazine? Then it went woke? Wow, don't worry. Flip City has no chance of going woke. That's right. 4 times a year, you'll get an actual printed magazine full of jokes, stories, comics, and more, all about today's pop culture, entertainment, and woke politics. Flip City takes terrible entertainment trends we love to hate with hilarious parodies of Lord of the Rings, Stranger Things, The Walking Dead, Star Trek, Hunters, and more. Trust me when I say there is nothing else like Flip City on the market. So subscribe today. It will be delivered in print, or you can even get it digitally if you're one of those wacky Zoomers. Either way, follow our link and sign up today, and if you put in midnight, you get an extra 10% off. Check out Flip City Magazine today.
Good morning, campers. Welcome to the program. It's Friday. We made it through another week. We have Friday? Andre here.
It's Friday already?
It's Friday already.
Yeah, time flies. Yeah, greetings, everyone. The week is behind us. It was the week that so many have had waited for with the Disney earnings call, which I think many were a little bit disappointed by. But yeah, we'll see what everyone has to say about it.
Yes, and it seems that vampires may be dead. Even more dead than they usually are.
Extra dead.
Extra dead. Double dead. So yeah, unfortunately, between Renfield and Last Voyage of Demeter this year at the box office, I think it's safe to say that the vampire run has come to a close for a while. I think zombies are right around the corner, but maybe we'll discuss that some during the show. We have Paul from Canada here. How you doing, Paul?
I'm representing all of Canada.
Oh, you're not selling your house, it looks like.
I blame you.
Blame me.
I blame Canada.
Are all the actors going to come live with you in your house since you're the only one who refuses to sell?
Yeah, well, I'm the only person who doesn't need to sell because I did a proper job of managing my finances.
I know, right? And of course, I think part of what you're referring to is Billy Porter going around freaking out because he's got to sell his house. And from what I've heard, he went and bought a fancy ass house. Okay, so that's part of the problem.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, right.
A very unflamboyant individual.
Oh yeah.
Like
for those who don't know who Billy Porter is, this was the guy who played the fairy godmother in the recent what was it, Cinderfella remake, whatever it was.
Yeah,
I don't know. But anyway, Billy Porter worked more last year than a lot of actors, but now he's bitching that he's got to sell his house. And I was thinking the same thing Paul was saying, and that was maybe you need to find a better accountant or learn how to finance your money, dude.
Billy Porter makes RuPaul look like Truman.
Oh, Jesus.
So it was, like you say, that he was the fairy godmother. So it wasn't that dude who was the fairy godmother in the Disney park?
No.
No, in the show.
In the movie.
In the movie.
Yeah, in that movie.
Oh, right, that dude.
Yes. Yes. And that's the thing is he's worked more in the last year than a lot of actors have. That was the point I was making on the show.
Oh, he was super popular.
So I'm saying, so to me, from what I heard, he bought a house that was way beyond his means.
And I'm sure Liberace's designer probably did the interior. I'm fairly certain. I'm just guessing. I'm not accusing him because Liberace did not ever admit to being flamboyant. That's
no. He was just eccentric.
He was eccentric.
That was what my grandmother said. He's not gay. He's eccentric.
That's right. All those grandmothers that just adored.
They couldn't deal with that.
They just adored him, and he knew it. I mean, he knew what his place was, and he was never.
Oh, absolutely.
He was never going to reveal.
It was kind of like, yeah, it was just one of those things. But
it was the time. It was of the era.
Speaking of flamboyant gay gentlemen, we have Culture Casino here.
Hi, everybody. Good to see you.
These are your friends.
These are my friends. Hey, all I have to say is, we were gifted Cinderella 2021 because of the wonderful James Corden. So it would not have existed without.
He's burned up pretty quickly.
I don't know that I don't know that he's doing well. I'd say that once the Late Show money dried up and then the writer's strike, he's never going to come back to do any of that. Not that he was all that popular. And no, he just became a producer on that Cinderella remake 2021.
Well, he was brilliant in that Cats movie.
Okay. Did
he play one of the buttholes? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, did you see that?
No, he's in it. I know he's
in it. Well, CBS. This is an interesting discussion just around late night talk shows. I'm going to be doing a video on, the death of late night talk shows. The strike has been on for 3 months, and no one has noticed that they're off the air.
True.
I've heard a lot of people are happy they're off the air.
Well, not just that. I mean, we didn't discuss this in the back room before going on, but I was also curious about just what YouTube is doing, because YouTube, they're going to disagree, but they really did push network content on people quite hard. I mean, wouldn't you agree, Culture? I mean,
yeah.
I mean, Fallon and Colbert and Kimmel were filling our feeds constantly.
Yeah, and we've been blessed without them, and instead we've been getting shorts of the girl from is it Community or Parks and Rec? She's funny. She's deadpan, and her name just fell out of my head.
Aubrey Plaza?
Yes, Aubrey Plaza. Yeah, so like my feed's now full of her on those shows, but that's better than what I was getting before, which was nonsensical
but
stuff.
So from our perspective, it's good. But then I was thinking, and I'm going to be talking about this in the video too, is that does this affect the revenue of YouTube?
Oh, yeah.
Because the regular advertisers love having the talk show host, the clips of the talk show host on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that was actually part of the adpocalypse, where as we were forced to stop using naughty words on our shows to make YouTube more ad friendly, the rise of the network inserts happened at the same time. And our feeds, like the not our personal feeds per se, but the popular feeds, the ones that most people were watching and YouTube would promote, because a lot of people were watching them, were all the stupid talk show clips. So they must be losing money on this.
I would guarantee it, to be fair. I think they're losing a ton of money because they're losing money from those channels. I mean, there was a Jimmy Fallon clips channel that I know was getting, millions of views a month. And that really hurt them financially, but it not only that, I mean, it also hurt the promotion of anything that they cross promoted. I mean, you have to consider, I mean, what are those interviews? Well, we were just talking Aubrey Plaza. She was promoting her show. She was promoting the film she was in, all that. So they're losing a lot of that promotion at the same time. So, and then the actors are going to suffer because they're not going to be in front of people as often. So people are going to be going, okay, what was that person's name? Who's that? And then they'll fade into a certain amount of obscurity.
But I think the obscurity has already started.
Oh, I agree.
One of the comments I'm making as I've been researching this is that we Canadians have always been jealous of the Hollywood juggernaut. We could never compete. We had one talk show. We had several talk shows, late night talk shows. They all died because they were insufferable. But we also didn't have the talent to populate the talk shows. And looking at the talk shows, the American talk shows from up here, we would see all these phenomenal stars. George Gobel, I guess that's not a huge star, but I mean, you had Dean Martin and Frank Sinatra, and you had mega stars on the Johnny Carson show, for instance. And we could not compete with that at all. And I am postulating that modern Hollywood can't even compete with old Hollywood.
Oh yeah.
Those were fun shows, and some people have been shoving me old Johnny Carson episodes, and I think NBC would be better off starting to rerun all 30 years of the Johnny Carson shows from the beginning, from the 60s.
Yeah,
instead of Fallon, and I think they're going to get more
I think
better results.
I think they'll get even better results. No, I'm with you, Paul. In fact, I'll suggest another show that we need, and we need a return of something called the variety show. We need that badly. So I would say reboot Carol Burnett, except just run the reruns. Don't reboot it.
I totally agree.
Introduce the show, the episode.
Then
for
what
the
is
show.
my TV going to show? You guys have just said half the crap that's on my TV.
Yes, that's right. That's exactly right.
I mean,
or
but
Pluto.
Well, but it would win, right? That would win if you ran those.
Some
reruns,
of it's on Pluto too. Yeah.
Yeah, if you ran those reruns here in the States, I think you would have a ratings winner. They'd be able to sell ads all day long.
But that's why Pluto's exploding, is because they're actually playing the shows that we want to see with entertainers that are more interesting. And one of the things that's really lost from Hollywood is just the sense of fun. I remember watching the Dean Martin show, and it never looked like he rehearsed his show at all. He would just walk in and do the show, and he'd be smoking and maybe had a highball, or actually apparently he never really drank, but it looked like he drank. And you people are way too young to remember this. I used to watch it with my mom, but Dean Martin would start the show with him sort of sliding on his piano and then, talking in that Dean Martin way, and then singing some stupid song with the piano player, his regular piano player. And I remember one time the set guys replaced the entire piano with some balsa wood fake piano, and he did not know, and he just jumps on the piano and he falls down, and he is howling with laughter. The audience is howling with laughter.
Wow.
And it was just glorious fun. I mean, just listening to your laughter right now, you get it, right?
Yeah.
Where do we get in all our turgid, horrible, wheel of times and all our BS on television? Where are we getting that kind of pure, unadulterated fun? I mean, I think that segment must have lasted 5 minutes. People were just
the closest equivalent you're going to get to that right now is here on podcasts.
Exactly.
This is the modern day equivalent of that.
You're right,
and
on YouTube.
Modern day Johnny Carson, there is one. His name is Joe Rogan.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
He is the modern day Wogan to the British, and he is the modern day Carson to Americans. That's where it is. That's what it has shifted to.
Yeah.
Traditional late night TV programs, they're no longer what they were. I mean, they're all propagandists. Every last one of them. I mean, I remember when I was in America in 2018, with like a group of friends and everything. I was like, I can't. How the hell did this happen? How did not a single one of us think to actually book to be on like Jimmy Kimmel or something like that when we were in LA? Like, it's taping right now. How the hell did not a single one of us 10 think to book this?
Because you didn't think of it.
I'm glad I didn't go, because I have zero respect for any of them. I mean, Carson, he didn't need any freaking writers. I'm sure he had someone helping him.
He had no.
Oh, he had plenty of writers. Yes.
I'm sure he had plenty, but like when he was interviewing stuff like that.
Well, here's the thing. Those are a lot more set up than you'd think.
Yeah.
Like they actually have people sit down and talk to the guys before they. Like they actually have a pre-interview and all that business, but
better than Carson ever was. So
well, here's the thing: is you're right. You hit the nail on the head. The difference between Carson and even guys like Leno and Letterman compared to what we have now is they made sure that they were as politically neutral as they could be, and when they weren't, they were talking about stuff that was taking over the nation. The other side of it is like right now, if Joe Biden had gotten a blowjob in the White House, we wouldn't be able to talk about it.
Right.
Okay. When it happened to Clinton, it was
everywhere.
It made nighttime talk show TV skyrocket in ratings because of the jokes and shit they had to go with. Like, it was one of the most risque times on television in history. You had never heard so many metaphors for blowjobs than you do on Comics Division on Thursday night. Like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, it was just a heyday, right?
That's what late night TV was. And I just saw a Carson episode from '69, I believe, where he was making fun of Ford and his housing policies. It was, wow, okay. that's very political for its time. But I mean, he was hitting out at conservatives, and in a very funny way. It was really
Well, it kind of went both ways then. That
yeah,
was the
yeah, yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, it was very clever, and then he didn't get a laugh on one, and the way he handled it was great. So we're missing convivial easiness. Just and
Yeah.
you're right.
Yeah, it's been replaced with this really weird sense of, you know, moribund awfulness that we can't get past. Everything seems dead at night. The late night shows just seem dead, and
Well, because they're hurrying. Look, Fallon
Yeah.
is going from one YouTube clippable game to the next.
right.
Like, oh, got to get to the next stick. It's just they've lost it. They've completely lost it.
They also all had talent. And I'm serious. I mean, it wasn't just the hosts, right? Because we can say an awful lot about the great hosts that existed in those shows in the past, but it was the people they brought on, because stars actually were stars for a reason. They could deliver. They could, like, you could ask, you know, Carol Channing to get up and do, you know, whatever. She would go off and do something, and it would be completely off the top of her head, but that was real talent, you know. And you'd have you know, you'd have, of course, the what do I call them, the stunt guests, like the
animal guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, and all of that. But at the same time, you still would have these incredibly talented people that could just come in and immediately perform. Winters, right? Winters would come in and just wreck the room. You never know what Johnny didn't know what he was going to do. Nobody knew what he was going to do.
And you know what the big difference was? The vast majority of performers that Carson had on were also live acts.
That's also true.
Where, you know, Toady Fields, the stand-ups, well, even today stand-ups are live acts, but almost every single person also performed, even if it's Bing Crosby. I mean, they all were trained in vaudeville or in live theater. And that, I mean, their chops were so good. And now you've got people graduating from, you know, YouTube, TikTok influencers to starring in Wheels of Power. I mean, you know,
wow, I like that. Wheels of Power.
Wheels of whatever. Wheels of Time.
Might as well
Wheels
be
of
called
Time
that.
and Rings of Power.
Well, I think you hit the other point. I think the other problem with it is this, Paul. And you hit the point clearly on the head, and that is that there's no real celebrities anymore. You don't have a Robin Williams you can bring in there. Or
live,
right?
And live experience.
They loved that whenever Robin would come in. They would usually section off the whole last half of the show for him, because they knew he was going to go off, and you were going to be able to rein him in. You know, there was a couple guys like that, and you know, even you never knew what sometimes some of these guys were going to do, like him, Jim Carrey. Or like the famous incidents with like Bobcat Goldthwait, where he practically burned down Arsenio Hall's fucking set.
It was amazing.
Like, you don't have that shit no more. And none of these people are anybody I'd want to sit down and listen to. It's like, do I really want to sit down and listen to anything Rachel Ziegler has to fucking say?
No, that's exactly right. Like, who cares? I actually like Aubrey Plaza.
And
there's a few maybe.
That's why I brought her up.
But it's so corporate now that it's even worse. Because, like, going off of what we were saying earlier, Andre, like, yeah, they're written. Even the interviews, except for when you get like Robin Williams or Jim Carrey in there, like I said, they never knew what to expect when those guys would show up. But like,
oh man,
you know, normally they would sit there and they would interview the people like a day or two in advance. Like, they'd have somebody call you up or whatever from the show, and they'd talk about a few things and be like, is there anything you want to talk about specifically? Any stories or whatever cues that, you know, the host can give you to get into this story? And that's usually how those things work. They're fairly scripted. And that's why they can't run the shows anymore. I mean, even though it's not directly scripted, it's kind of the same way they adopted that same kind of thing with reality TV, basically.
Yeah, you usually have one of the producers of the show call up the guests in advance and do a pre-interview. And what was happen is they would ask them questions about what they had going on in addition to whatever they were going to be promoting, and try to find out a funny story. Is there a funny story you can recall about, you know, this, or is there something that happened?
And then they'd feed Johnny with whatever so he know how to get it.
And the writers actually. But
Johnny fed the actors better than anybody else. Yeah. Maybe Craig Ferguson, but Fallon just wants to talk about Fallon.
Yeah.
And Carson was just brilliant how he would feed into the story, especially if you had Rodney Dangerfield on.
Oh wow.
And
Or
that would,
Siskel and Ebert.
yeah, that
Like
would
some of my favorite
yeah.
clips is when those two are arguing and he just sits there and he just goes and just lets them go off.
He
'cause they
grabs his
just,
coffee mug every once in a while.
yeah.
It's so good.
Listen, if you want a hilarious episode, look up Johnny Carson and George Gobel. Oh my God, that you.
Well, there's
will
some great
die.
clips out there, and I share them from time to time
Oh, yeah.
too. So yeah.
So we don't
Just-
have that.
we don't
And
have that
and it's
anymore,
funny
no.
as a Canadian seeing the disillusion of Hollywood not being able to compete with its old self.
Well,
I
and,
don't care about anybody that's on the talk shows, any of the guests.
No.
That's actually part of the problem.
well, and speaking of being Canadian, like one of your biggest imports up until the last 30 years or whatever was SCTV, right? Like
Sure.
you guys were kind of known for your comedy. You used to import comedians all the time. Hell,
We loved
Jim
them.
Carrey I
All of
named. There's so many, Dan Aykroyd
Dan
and others
Aykroyd,
that came
Candy.
from Canada.
Eugene Levy, Catherine
Candy,
O'Hara.
like that's the thing is we're also missing that. We don't have that anymore. Who's the best comedian out there now? Melissa McCarthy. I mean,
No.
who the fuck can you name? Exactly my point. There
Yeah.
is nobody anymore. Even Dave Chappelle, unless he's doing a stand-up special, he don't do shit no more. He ain't
Well,
coming anywhere near Hollywood.
I mean,
so.
yeah, you do have Chrissy Mayer and a few others that we know that are very, very.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, as far as like on this level, like we've had this conversation many times, and I
No,
don't
we
want to go
know
too
that,
far.
but
But
again, that's not like someone who's like.
But see, that's
no, and we've had this conversation with Paul, and I think that's the problem is where you used to be able to have name a dozen comedians that were like rock stars. Like the 80s
Yeah.
was the time when comedians were like rock stars, and now you don't have that anymore. Go ahead, Culture. You're going to say something.
No, I just wanted to add to what you were saying. As usual, Tom, you're hitting the nail on the head. But that was the other beautiful thing about Carson and some of the other guys that were there alive during that period of time on other channels doing their thing. But they would bring in new comedians, people up and comers. They would actually break comedians in at the highest level and turn them into. Carson could turn somebody into a superstar.
Yeah,
absolutely. If he came over and gave you the handshake, or if he called you over afterwards, that was the whole key of whether or not you made it or not.
You know what? And that was, you watched Carson because you hoped to see him break a stand-up like Stephen Wright.
Yeah.
I mean,
Wow.
And that was a great opening for him. Steve Martin's first appearance on Carson is spectacular. And to see his genuine joy. You don't see the joy from Colbert or Fallon breaking a comedian. It's not the same thing. Carson knew his power and he didn't abuse it. At least he didn't abuse it on the show. And that was fun to see. A David Brenner, all these people get broke on the not broke, but I mean introduced.
Yeah.
And that was the dream of any stand-up. Now any new stand-up, if they appear on Fallon, I mean, does it help their careers? No,
It's very dry. It's very
Yeah.
dry. They've already made it, and it's funny. The Steve Martin story, right, where he started, right?
At Disney World or some.
He started in Disneyland in the magic shop.
Yeah.
That was his first job, and so he's always performed because he would do magic tricks in the Disney magic shop, amongst all the other things that he's. And again, that man is talented. He can play instruments. He can do sleight of hand. He can act. He can sing.
Well, and it's hard for comedians now. Besides the woke factor, you're right. Like there used to be like a couple levels to where you knew you made it. One of them was getting on Carson.
Yeah.
Another one was getting on SNL, and another one was getting your own HBO or Showtime special. Basically, those were the three things. And then from there, if you got those three things, your next big thing was getting your own sitcom. Then you were done. You had made it. You were Ray Romano. You were Roseanne. You were the top. Cosby kind of made that whole thing what it was. It's like, this is how you do it, kind of thing. And everybody kind of followed that formula for like 40 years. It worked for him, but now that's changed. Speaking of changing, we've got some change in the chat, at least some dollars. I'm sure after YouTube's done with it, we'll get some change out of it, though. Hyper Guyver sends the first super chat of the day that we got here and says, "Happy Friday. Who's ready for some world-class entertainment coverage without the bullshit?" So throwing some shade there, yeah. Final Smash says, "Hale, what's the chances of the MCU doing a hard reboot after Secret Wars? There's too much content between movies and shows for a newbie to jump in." This is a very good question, Final Smash, especially when it comes to what's been going on over at Disney, and this kind of what we're talking about today, because I didn't really watch the earnings call yesterday because I knew it was going to be a bunch of puff crap. But yeah, we got some highlights we're going to discuss today, and one of them is the slowdown of Marvel, and I think they are going to step back and reassess how things are going right now. I'm curious what you guys think they might do going forward with Marvel, because yeah, that's what it sounds like. Is they may have to. We've been hearing this before yesterday, anyway, where they were kind of reevaluating things over there and trying to figure out how they can save some money. There was even talks of certain shows and movies that might not happen now. So who wants to begin? Andre, you want to
Yeah,
get into the Marvel side
can,
of things anyway,
yeah,
at least?
I can say that I know that I'm we're in the disagreement here, but I am categorically against any kind of hard reboot of the MCU. You have phases 1, 2, and 3 are absolutely fantastic. That is such a rich foundation. You do not want to mess it up. Marvel is not ruined beyond repair. Get the right creatives in, and getting Marvel back on track is an easy fix. I mean, the fix is right there with Phase 4, right? It's the multiverse saga, like the Defenders and all that shit, like not Defenders per se, but the Eternals and She-Hulk. Just put it in a different multiverse. Then you never have to deal with a dude sticking out of planet Earth or anything of the sort again. It's such an easy fix. You can fix it in a Deadpool movie and then go on from there. And that's kind of like what I'm hoping. We've been hearing some rumors to that end. I've been suggesting it long before we heard the rumors. I said that I was hoping, I still hope this, that they're now going to look at the numbers for Phase 4 in the beginning of Phase 5 and see, okay, we are really killing the golden goose here, and we are continued down that path. That there's too late to do anything about Loki and stuff like that. But really, these Avengers moves and stuff, you don't actually have to do those. So let's just scrap everything that we have planned and come up with a new plan from new people who aren't crazies. That is what I hope that they will do. I don't necessarily think they will do that, but I think that is what they should do. That is how you fix Marvel. There is no need to hard reboot everything. I mean, it's easy. You just do like a relatively do like a soft reboot where you keep all the continuity, but you go back to street level and you go back to space level, and you keep the two relatively separate with a new set of characters. Maybe James Bond, some of them, and just do like a new simple set of stories. Then you can gradually bring back some continuity without getting too bogged down in what already has been. I mean, it's not unavoidable that it has to be as convoluted as it has. The only reason it does that is because you have inept, crazy people running the show. That's when it becomes convoluted. It doesn't have to be. And there's no need to basically throw the baby out with the bathwater because you have a few years behind you with inept people running the show. Just get it back on track, is what I say.
I think it became convoluted because that was their answer to trying to top Thanos.
Yeah, and that's what they shouldn't have done. They shouldn't have tried to top Thanos. No. That was their mistake. Don't top Thanos. This is like the Hollywood disease, that you think you have to top what came before. Whoever told you that? You don't have to top anything. You just have to tell compelling stories.
Oh, wait a second. Okay, there's the problem.
Yeah, the perfect follow-up to Endgame wasn't, oh, we have to top it with Kang. No, it was, now we're going to get you compelled with something like Netflix Daredevil.
Yeah,
that's how you follow up the Infinity Saga. Don't top
I agree with you in principle, Andre, but I think it's too late. I think they have I think they have gone so far off the deep end now that if you had caught them a couple movies post Endgame, you'd be able to do it. I think we are so far in the weeds now past anything that was there before, and they have sullied or shat on anything that came before so hardcore at this point that it's kind of like DC. I feel like if you don't just flat out reboot this thing, you might as well just fucking say to hell with it, because nobody's going to be interested anymore. That's one of the biggest problems, I think, right now. This whole thing is this incessant need that everything has to be connected. I think people have gotten tired of that. They like it to a point, but I think they've gotten to this point where it's like, I am so sick and tired of having to see the Marvels and WandaVision and the Captain America series and all this other shit to be able to enjoy one of these movies. And if you look, Andre, the thing that supports that is when Doctor Strange come out. Look at it. That's when the MCU really took a nosedive, because people realized, oh, this ain't a sequel to the popular movie I just watched last year with Spider-Man and Doctor Strange in it. This is a sequel to that stupid fucking show on Disney Plus I never watched.
Yeah, I know.
That's
they fucked up because they went convoluted and they didn't have to.
And I get what you're saying, but I think they have gone so far from the mothership now that the only way to fix this is a hard reboot. Like because there is so many stories they never told that they have bypassed that you cannot wrap yourself around. They have had years now where they have sat here on the X-Men and they can't even get the Fantastic Four off the fucking ground. And I guarantee you this one's just going to be just as bad and dumb as the Trank one, only in the opposite direction, right? And it's going to be everything we've expected it to be all these years. The X-Men, I have no idea what the fuck they're doing at this point. Either they're going to reboot everything with Deadpool 3 anyway, like that's been the rumor, or they're going to continue with, like, mixing in all the X-Men actors because they can't quite figure out how they're going to reboot this thing. Like, this is where they're at with this. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. And I think we got the answer to all of it in that recent James Gunn interview during Guardians 3 when he flat out said, I sat down myself personally and in 90 minutes mapped out the entire Infinity Saga because I had to. Because he didn't have it for Guardians of the Galaxy. That's how fucked up this whole thing has been. We have been sitting back here with the idea that Feige knows what he's doing. He's had a plan all along. He planned up to Thanos. He did all this shit. No, he didn't. Fucking James Gunn did that.
Yep.
That's what we're learning now. James Gunn is the reason that everything from Guardians of the Galaxy up till Infinity War was good. That's what we're finding out. That's the only reason I have any faith right now in DC is because the one fucking talented person you had in the bunch is now over at DC. And the proof is in the pudding, because what is the one good fucking movie we've gotten in the last 5 years out of Marvel? I'll wait.
The Galaxy Part 3. That's the one good Marvel movie the past 4 years.
I would add one caveat to that.
Please do.
I think
other than Spider-Man, yeah.
No. I think there's a natural sense of anticipation for certain properties. And I would say Doctor Strange, I was really looking forward to that in the good old MCU way.
Yeah.
And then they shat on it. And then you go, oh, and personally, we can argue about this. I liked Ragnarok, and I was looking for the next Thor, and they shat on that. So it's not like they completely lost the ability to twist up our interest, or to get us excited about. And like the property itself was exciting. Ant-Man is the complete opposite. You have to watch that property. No one is going to be intrinsically interested in it, so you have to surprise people how good you made it. So, and this is something that nobody there, I don't think, would ever have discussed internally. The fact that they screwed up those two properties meant that, for the most part, we're never going to trust the MCU again. We're not going to trust Marvel again. That, especially, I have to say, especially the Doctor Strange, because I love that character.
No, go ahead.
Nope, that's it.
And I love that you have the idea they could fix this, Andre. I mean, I would like to think that's the case, but I think that there's nothing left for them to work with. Even the Fantastic Four and X-Men are not enough anymore.
Well, I mean, it can be
Culture,
easily.
go ahead, yeah.
It could be easily argued, Tom and Paul, that they had a path forward. They just had to follow the outlines of the comics to get from and just connect the dots that way. So, and I imagine that's exactly what Gunn did, because I mean, here's a guy who knows the freaking comics, right? So you get him to kind of path it through, and that's how we ended up with a decent Phase 3. But I feel like even at the end, with Endgame, they started to lose the plot, and they gave you the A-Force moment there that they're headed towards now to give you the full MCU. And if you didn't see that coming, Paul, I mean, I knew that Doctor Strange had been compromised.
I didn't know.
I had been very interested in the film up until I started to hear about all the things that were being introduced into this, and the fact that it was going to be a bait and switch. And that's exactly what it became. It became WandaVision, the movie. And, you moved on from that to...
Oh, why did they need to do it? Like, this is my point, is that if they just followed the way comic books did their thing,
right,
you just make a Doctor Strange movie.
Well, and I mean, and if you want to introduce the idea of a House of M or any of that stuff, I mean, you could, but you don't want to convolute the things together. I like I said, regardless. And so, was I surprised that we were going to end up with the mighty Thor? No. Was I surprised we were going to get some other baloney sausage, of making a woman a king? No. I mean, I'm not surprised anymore, and I don't think anybody else should be. But to what the main topic of this is, I agree with the fact that we can't reboot what is currently Marvel, but I think you have to put a pause on it, maybe make standalone movies with superheroes that you haven't touched yet, or maybe just make X-Men films for a little bit, leave the rest of the...
I'm curious, though, before you go too much farther, though, why you and Andre think it's almost impossible to reboot.
Well, you've killed off all of the important characters.
You have to bring them back.
Exactly, but you can't.
Well, that's why rebooting is the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's what I'm asking.
Right. What I'm suggesting is you shelve it for a while before you bring everything back, and that's honestly the path forward. It would be a hard reboot in a way that you're not bringing back the same actors and the same characters with the same storylines. You're bringing them back in a different world, but you can't do that for years. I don't see anybody being able to do that for 4 or 5 years. I'm sorry, Andre, I couldn't hear you real low.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No.
But I'll see, I can fix that.
No.
To me, it's really, really simple. You kind of like James Bond it, and the worst parts of Phase 4, you just assign them to a different multiverse. You just have to address it in a comment or something like that by Deadpool, like, oh, look at this multiverse right here. Here's a multiverse where here's a universe where She-Hulk is like talking to the audience and having an affair with some dude in a yellow costume. The hell is up with that? No, look, here's another one where Earth is a celestial and stuff, and then you make a joke about it and you're done with it. And then you just make it clear that, okay, Phase 4 was kind of a mistake, so you just remember that everything that happened up till Phase 3, that happened, but it doesn't really matter because we're kind of starting over, similar to what we did with Phase 1, but this all happened.
Well, I think
you keep the richness of the story, you keep the character and relations that have already been built, rather than starting completely from scratch. Because my issue with that is that now you have covered actually a lot of story that is in the Marvel universe. So now you're going to start a Marvel Universe 2.0 where you can't Thanos again because he was so important before. Where now all of these stories that we have covered, now you can't touch those in the universe, or you have to see them done again, some version of. No, just James Bond it. Keep what is there. That's continuity. That happened. Move on, and now you tell the other stories.
But Andre, they ran through as fast as they possibly could to get to the modern books, even in the context of the third phase.
Just because things happen in a certain sequence in the comics doesn't mean that you're beholden to the same sequence in live action.
I get what you're saying, Andre.
Go go back to to tell the stories from the 70s.
But Paul's right, because there's no way. Look, I don't think you can re-engender or rekindle that sense of FOMO that Paul was talking about. Right, you're not. There's no fear of missing out on these movies because they've basically destroyed your inner spirit or your inner excitement for going to see them again. I like I said. I mean, I don't. Gosh, Hollywood is so dead right now.
This is what I was going to say is I think maybe Paul will understand this from the corporate side of things. I understand where you're coming from, Andre, but I think Commandant VHS is right. You're trying to build a house on sand at this point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. Is you can James Bond specific characters from time to time. I'm not saying you can't, but we're talking about a whole universe here, right? Like this thing has fallen under the weight of itself. If they were smart, they would like do some kind of Thanos snap to re-snap everything back to reset, and the Fantastic Four starts in the 1960s. That's the only way they can do this now. And then you kind of introduce some, and I agree with you, like, yeah, we don't need a new reintroduction story to Spider-Man or Captain America or Iron Man. You just bring in the new versions of those without having to reiterate their, basic origin story because we already know it. But what you can do is introduce the audience to newer versions of the Fantastic Four and some of these other characters we haven't got to see yet. And that's a way of restarting and revamping this whole thing. Because I just don't know if you can, because we live in this world. And I heard you saying, how to do this, Andre, and I agree with you. That's fun. But I get these kind of questions all the time from the chat and from people, on Twitter and everything like that. And it's like, especially during the Flash thing, it's like, yeah, you could do some kind of reset and some kind of movie or whatever, but not everybody watches every movie. And Hollywood used to operate under the idea that, look, even though we're doing whatever movie part 3, we have to remember that a lot of the audience might not have watched part 1 and 2. So we're going to have to bring them up to speed and also treat this like it's its own thing. That, I think, is the bigger problem overall. And I was reminded of this when I was watching The Incredible Hulk last week. And that is that none of these movies stand on their own anymore. You can't just pop into Captain America Winter Soldier now like you used to, and that be its own standalone story and still serve a bigger purpose. That's the problem. The bigger purpose has now become the problem. They're sitting here looking at this Marvel thing, and you know what their problem is? They've got one actor who's on the verge of possibly going to prison for a while because of his situation, and they lost James Gunn, and you don't have Robert Downey Jr. anymore. You don't have Captain America anymore. Thor has become a joke. I mean, you have nothing but garbage to work with. That's where I'm saying, like, if I was them, I'd completely wipe the slate clean. And when Fantastic Four comes out, I'd be like, no, this is the beginning of a new era. Culture's right. Take like a year break after Deadpool 3, reconfigure what you got, and start fresh with Fantastic Four. Introduce these characters, like you said, in a James Bond kind of way. But otherwise, there's too many problems. There's too much baggage here. We're too deep into this thing. And the audiences get kind of tired of reboot. Like, that's why I think the new Halloween movies didn't work so well. At first, people were into it. But you know what I noticed from when that movie came out is people were confused. A lot of people were like, where the fuck's Josh Hartnett? Like, they thought it was a sequel to H2O. They didn't realize that this was a complete re-establishment. And I think once people figured that out, they didn't want to return for the next 2. Like, people are tired of that kind of shit too. So I think they want something fresh sometimes. I don't know. Mission Impossible was another one. It flopped. Transformers flopped. All these movies this year that people, are rejecting are movies that are old IP. And the only thing they're accepting are things like Barbie, which is fresh IP. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if you guys see it the same way, but Paul, I would think you would understand, especially from a corporate point of view, is, they used to not like this idea of everything being so attached because you didn't know everybody was going to see part 1 and 2 before you'd see part 3. Or if same thing with James Bond, they tried to make those movies accessible to a brand new audience every time.
Well, obviously times change. Although,
and that's true, but
I would say in the most embarrassing way, if they brought back the sexist, manly James Bond of the 60s, I'll bet you the movie would do fantastically well, and all the purple hairs would be screaming at the top of their lungs. That I think is not that I want to bring back that era of dubious sexism from the early James Bond. But ironically, I think that would almost be a palate cleanser. So I'm not advocating for that. Those of you who want to dox me out there, but my view is that I think in the comic book realm, that I think if you had strong leadership and someone was able to convincingly talk to the audience out there and say, and treat them like they're employees, in the sense that the best companies run the best when the employees know what the vision is and what the rules are, and everyone is treated fairly according to those rules. Okay. That's when a company works. So if I went out there and let's say I was running the MCU, I'd go, folks, we're going to start treating the MCU like the way the comic books did, the way that you would enjoy a Frank Miller run, the way that you would enjoy a Steve Ditko run. So we're going to change things up by letting our artists give you the Frank Miller version of Batman for a period of time. I mean, that actually happened with Nolan, right? We enjoyed those 3 movies because they were of a kind. They were Nolan's vision, and that was much more similar to the way the comic books handled superheroes. So then they would know that, oh, I can see the Nolan version of Batman, and it's going to be a little bit different from the Neil Adams. Well, Neil Adams did Spider-Man. So you could actually convince an audience, I believe, that you can have 4 different kinds of Spider-Mans because you've communicated who the creative people are, what their vision is, and how much fun you're going to have watching this new run of them. And they'll all be a short run. The issue is that Hollywood keeps trying to think that the audience is stupid, that they can't be trusted with information. And the movie itself has got to surprise people. No, people don't necessarily want to be surprised. They want to be entertained. And surprised and entertained is not necessarily the same thing if you're surprised the wrong way. So, Doctor Strange surprised me in the wrong way. So I think it can be done. The blueprint is in the 100 years of comic books that already exist out there.
Well, and I think
Spider-Man, let me just finish this off. Spider-Man started going in decline until McFarlane suddenly came along, right? So aren't we in that same kind of thing? If we can find that creative spirit that can then marshal interest and excitement in that property for a certain amount of time, because nothing lasts forever. Hollywood, of course, will beat it. Oh, it's successful. I think we'll beat this till it's completely dead. If we can at least encourage them not to do that, I think within the superhero genre, we can bring confidence back to the audience that at least we know what we're doing. End of speech.
All I was going to say is I think you hit something there that was very important, and that is that, yes, we used to live in a world where you had television and movies and they were separate. And you could have, 2 different Spider-Men because you had one on TV and one in the movies and so on and so forth. I think that was another problem, was them not allowing television and movie to be 2 separate things.
Well,
and that's also where maybe their budgets have gotten insane, and we can probably segue into that part of it too. But go ahead, Culture.
No, all I wanted to add is, now look at how much a Marvel TV show costs. $212 million for Secret Invasion's flop and failure. That's a massive movie budget, right? And maybe they did try to make it cinematic, and maybe they did try to deliver a premium show, but they failed so miserably, you're laughing at them. And
we don't need to see a premium show on TV.
Well, what's even worse is they spend $250-300 million or more on some of these shows, and they don't look like it. That's the other problem, is they're claiming that they. And this also goes into why the VFX guys are trying to unionize. And
yeah,
I didn't even know half this crap. I thought they already were. I didn't realize some of the stuff that was going on. Like, if anybody's got any room to bitch or gripe right now in Hollywood, as far as like not getting equal pay for equal work, it's the VFX guys. Have you heard some of these horror stories?
Oh, I'm connected. I used to do.
Yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. One guy from WandaVision flat out said they'd already been working 18-hour days, and somebody came to them and said, "You're not getting another day off until this till this fucking episode is done. And they had already been working like 6 days a week, 18-hour days as it was. And they only get paid 12-hour salaries per day.
And I mentioned in a previous episode here that they were treating rendered 3D footage as if it was shot footage, and they would edit it and leave it on the editing floor. You don't do that with 3D footage. You pre-visit to death, and then you go, okay, we only have this budget. Literally, when one of my best friends worked at Pixar at the very beginning, they said, we can't create another character because that costs money. We can't afford to create another character. This is the hubris that Disney has fallen into, that you're just going to throw money at it, and you can't do that. And now that's what you're seeing. You're seeing just a ton of bullshit. Well, and the VFX guys don't want to work for them anymore.
No, well, they're being treated like slaves, and that's why this stuff's coming out like crap. And you're right. That's the other things we kept. Some of the horror stories we heard about Victoria Alonso, and it's not just her, right? There's other people that are just as guilty of it. And that is, like you said, they treat it like it's live shot footage. They're like, oh, well, let's just change this. And they don't realize that let's just change this now.
It's been rendered. It's done.
Yeah. Like, they don't realize that that means we got to go back, and all these animators got to do this, and you got to go through all these levels of all this crap. And again, that's why I think Flash looked the way it did too. I think they just, because some of the effects guys said flat out, they just quit working on it.
But the effects guys have been abused right across Hollywood. Let's be honest. The studio that did Sonic, I believe, and I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, I think it was a Vancouver company, the changeover from the initial character design to the successful one was considered a make good by the producers. Now, a make good is, you're going to change this for free because this was your fault. Now, I don't know who created the initial character of Sonic that got pillared so horribly after the trailer was shown, famously shown on YouTube. So I don't know whose fault that was, who the character design's fault was, but the studio, the animation studio, went bankrupt fixing that movie. So how do you create? And there's more. Every single movie has got 3D effects in it now, except for apparently the race movie.
Well, a lot of them do, and like that's one of the biggest things I see on Twitter, and I always respond to, and that's where like people say, how is it Jurassic Park that was made in 1993 can look more realistic than things we see today? And I said, well, the answer is Jurassic Park only had 53 CGI shots in it. The last Jurassic movie had over 2,000.
Now we should also compartmentalize the CG effects. There's the Spider-Man swinging from building to building. Okay, that's a CG effect. But I think in one of the Bourne conspiracies, they had the characters walking through Red Square in Moscow. They're on a green screen, and there's companies that specialize in licensing cities and then turning them into 3D escapes and then inserting them. So the movies actually save money by not having to go to the Trevi Fountain, by not having to go to Red Square or Tiananmen Square. And you cannot tell that that's 3D. That's being done all the time. And that's actually a boon and a cost savings.
Well, that's where that's the thing, is they need to sit down and figure out what are we doing that's actually saving us money, and what are we doing that's not saving us money. And that's where I think Disney has a problem, going back to the to the earnings call yesterday. And that is where you cannot continue to make these movies at this level and shows, because that's the other thing is that I brought up before. The amount of money they're spending on just one of these Marvel shows, damn well, Paul, you guys would have been able to make 10 or 15 shows back in the day or more. I mean, inflate the idea of the money, but still, maybe more like 10, but still, this is the problem. They should not be spending the amount of money on one show that it costs to make a movie, let alone 2 or 3 movies in some cases. So, Andre, this is kind of one of the things that was discussed that kind of got us down this path along with the Super Chat, is that we had the earnings call. So brief us some more on what happened yesterday.
Well, where to begin? Well, actually, it was 2 days ago now, not yesterday, but yesterday it was yesterday. But yeah, no, if we stick with the movies, one of the things that Iger said where movies are concerned, he said like that Disney, they have 3 areas which are the future of the company. And that's the parks, it's streaming, and it's the film studios. And about the film studios, he said that that was one that he was going to prioritize and personally oversee. They were going to bring up quality and bring down cost. I paraphrase, but that is the gist of what he said there. So he obviously realizes that budgets have spiraled completely out of control because there's no way to, well, of course there's a way, but it's much more difficult. There's a much higher threshold to making money when the budget is okay, fine. You know, it's screw budget because they always blow past the budget. When the total cost of making the thing is $400 million, I mean, that's when you need close to $1 billion just to break even. You can't continue doing business like that. They have to like get it down to no more than 150 million, and even that should be pushing it. And I think that they realize that. And then it's a matter of quality. And here's what he also said, that Disney has now reorganized to put the creatives back in charge. I hope he's not referring to the same creatives that destroyed Disney to begin with.
Yeah. Paul, anything to say to the?
No, I have questions mostly because I didn't hear the earnings thing. Was there anybody on the questioning Iger harshly?
No, there was one. The closest thing to a harsh question was one from Wells Fargo, and he asked 2 questions. One of them was basically when Netflix were where you are now, they were doing a whole hell of a lot better. So why are you screwing up this badly? He didn't use those exact words, but that was the gist of it. And then the follow-up was, how are you going to fund the Hulu put that will be forthcoming? That was the single hardest question that Iger got. He didn't answer it. He spent like minutes talking bullshit around that Netflix thing, and then the CFO he stepped in to answer the Hulu put, and what he basically said is that yeah, it's fine, it's no problem. We're gonna empty our savings accounts. We're gonna max out our credit cards. We're gonna sell off the kids' college funds. We're gonna save our retirement and sell off our retirement savings. And then I'm going to hope that the lottery number kicks in. That's basically what he said about that.
Yeah, and you know what? If I was Disney, I would turn on the Wells Fargo guy and say, yeah, and when are you going to stop adding fake services to your clients and charging them extra for it, huh? See, that's what I would have done.
Yeah, I'm sure that the CFO was tempted to do just that. I'm sure at the moment he was like, he was like thinking of pulling an Enron and calling him asshole.
So there was really, I mean, the Disney stock went up after the sales, after the
yes, and my speculation as to why that happened is Iger's strategic non-denial that they may be bought up by someone else. That's the only possible reason I can think of that the share price would possibly go up. Because what he was basically saying, of course, it was pretty phrasings and everything, but all of those core businesses that he said are the future of the company, they're all in a downward trajectory. Every single one of them. Like, there's literally no good news from the company. They try to spin it as good news, but if you're able to see through what they're saying, it's not really good news. Like Disney World, their single biggest and most important and most profitable park, is down from last year. And this in a period when all of the Universal parks in the same areas and everything like that are up massively. Only Disney World is down. And they're also stagnant in the Disneyland and in Europe. Only like meaningful growth is in Hong Kong and Shanghai. And there's reasons for that. And
wow,
that kind of lessens the impact. And then, of course, it's a decline in the streaming numbers, or like the streaming subscriptions across the board. And the movie division, well, for the first time, it actually lost money and had to be funded by other parts of the operation. So all of those areas that Bob Iger said are the future of the company are right now in a position where they have to be turned around, but there's nothing other than pretty words to suggest that they'll be turned around anytime soon. So my speculation is that it's the excitement about Apple maybe coming in to take them over in a few months that is driving up the share price, because it's nothing that Iger said, because Disney right now, the share, if anything, is overpriced.
It would be really funny if he was, during the earnings call, was eating an apple knowingly and then pulling out an iPhone just to check something, and then pulling out a MacBook Pro just to check something. Just no hints at all, just a bunch of subliminal visual cues.
Look, I think that's brilliant. It would have been, but at the same time, he probably would have gotten some trouble. Regardless, I look at it this way: that's the only way they can make the stock price bounce is with these rumors.
Yeah,
I guarantee you that story in the Hollywood Reporter that got these wheels rolling, that was leaked somehow for some reason.
Planted.
Yeah, because I'm looking at their opportunities, and if you look at all their market segments, and I said this yesterday, and I probably misspoke when I said it, but and even maybe possibly even on Wednesday after the call, but the parks are losing money year over year. And that's during an inflationary period where the revenue for the park segment should have been up substantially, and it wasn't. It had actually declined. And so I said specifically, I said, well, they're losing. They're losing revenue in the parks. They are. I mean, that there's not anything to argue about. They earned less money year quarter to quarter when you compare them, or and that's the wrong direction for the cash cow of your company. The only thing that's really keeping you alive to start to flag like that, that's bad. That usually indicates that. That usually indicates that if you're Disney, that you are getting close to that. We need to reboot our board and our leadership, because that's what's happened every other time. Eisner, and prior to Eisner is Miller, and every time there's been that point in time, that's what's happened. You can't, Disney tries to point, well, people tried to point at the fact that it's been hot in Florida. I'm like, dude, have you seen Universal Orlando? That place is packed. Disney is only giving you that illusion. You also have, at the same time, an issue with the fact that, even with opening up the parks in Asia, you should have had a boost in revenue that should have, continued for getting them fully open. We've had an increase in overall attendance globally. Well, yeah, because the parks the previous year were closed for such a long period of time in China. You had 2 parks that were shuttered for extended period.
Exactly. This is something you failed to mention, that the lockdowns went on for far longer in China. So they are having their post-lockdown boom right now. That's what explains those increased numbers right there.
Yeah.
Whereas where you would want to see growth is in the West, where the CCP can't come in and take the parks if you step out the line. And we didn't see that.
Yeah, and so it's like I've gotten some pushback from people, and I don't mind. It's just, and again, I may have misspoke, but what I meant is they have not increased last year to this year as what they should have increased substantially, because not only did you have inflation, which would drive those numbers upward, but you also have now participation in countries in parks that weren't open, or will open it in a limited period of time. In China. So it's, like I said, they're losing in their cash cow areas. I think the only thing good right now that's probably looking good is the cruise line. That's it.
That's the one thing, because they also said that they're going to expand their cruise line with 2 more ships in the next couple of years here. Yeah. So that was like a promising thing. But other than that, there were really, if you look aside the pretty words and the obfuscations, there really were no good news. And I still submit that the reason the share price went up is exclusively due to the speculation that Apple might come in and to pick them up. That is my theory. Is that something that you also think can have some merit, Culture?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said, I think the only reason that people would be buying this is because they're speculating on a future that was hinted at. I don't see another reason. And again, we get back to the cruise ships real quick, Andre. And this is something we probably should mention. They every 2 quarters right now, they're essentially losing enough money on Disney Plus to buy a whole cruise ship. Those things run about $1 billion.
Wow.
Yeah. And so if they hadn't spent all of this money on this losing proposition of streaming and still sold their content to like Netflix and all the other players out there, they would have been far better off.
They could do that tomorrow.
Yeah. And that's the biggest hurdle. Disney still is trying to in most ways, not always, but most ways try to keep that walled garden. And that's dumb. The value of your material isn't being fully realized.
No.
And they were, and again, so back to the question, Andre. So wouldn't they basically have a fleet of cruise ships now with the negative $13 billion that they're into Disney Plus for? Those sunk costs could have done a lot of things.
That would have been that's like a term for it. That's a past opportunity cost, yeah.
But it is each one of those divisions are a separate, wholly run corporation, and they don't overlap. So each has their own budgets.
The ships are under the parks, as far as I know.
Yeah. You have 3 divisions, or 3 primary sectors.
But even from a sector point of view, even then they would be hived off as their own LLP. Like the cruise would be protected.
The cruise lines are. Yeah, the cruise lines are.
And the other thing that no one talks about is debt management. No one has brought that up in any of the channels. Is that right now their credit rating on S&P and is around A-, and I mean they're far from AAA plus. And if they need to be able to keep the smoke and mirrors going, just so they don't go another notch, because that has a staggering debt management is staggeringly expensive. So they're already down to A-. If they go and slip any further, they're going to be paying way more money for the debt that they've got to manage. Like this is not a good time for. In fact, I'm shocked they're at A-, and I think they're manipulating the S&P.
Yeah, I think they are too. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking at the Fitch ratings right now, and they're stuck at A-, and that's I still don't understand that, but it's fine.
I think it's way too high. Yeah. There are too many friends on the board.
Well, yeah, they brought in the forced labor guy from Nike to be the chairman. So what did you expect? Yeah.
That's right.
Well, they did.
Yeah. Anyway, but that is a consideration that that would hurt them badly if they dropped further. If their credit rating had dropped.
Well, and consider this. I mean, while they do have, and Andre's pointed this out on a couple of shows now, they do have operating capital of, or I should say, a cash on hand equivalence of about $1 billion. The numbers just kind of make you a little leery. I mean, even though that's roughly 5 times or so what they had before. I'd heard people saying, well, they have actually $2 billion in like liquidity. I don't think that's right. I think there's only about $1 billion there in liquidity.
They do have a lot more in the change in the cushions at all the hotels that they run.
This is true. Yeah, they just need better mousekeeping services.
That's correct.
Collect the change.
I'm surprised the CFO didn't mention that in how to pay off the Hulu.
Could you
to all the hotels? We're going to find all of the leftover change. We're going to take all of the tip for our staff there.
Yes.
Fine.
Yes. Yeah. Could you imagine a giant staff meeting in a hall and someone demanding that Eisner going, have you checked under the cushions in all the hotels we run on the property, everyone? This is a priority.
Well, no, honestly, the other thing, Paul, is what they could do is if you've ever been to any of like the fountains or in any of the water bodies that are in Magic Kingdom or anywhere on property, people toss coins in there. So they just need to get in there and like shovel all those coins out. And instead of giving them to charity, they need they might need to stock up their coffers a bit.
I'm sure they can consider it as charity to give it to Comcast for the Hulu put, because they'll be getting nothing for it.
We did stay at the Polynesian, and that has got a water.
Yeah,
a water around, very nice. And we stayed at the sport hotels. No, they have 3. Well, at the time, sport, music,
the
themed hotels, which are just like blocks of time.
All-Star Sports, All-Star Music.
Yeah. So do they still have that?
Yeah, All-Star Sports and All-Star Music are still considered the value there.
Right.
Then you also have Pop Century, which is celebrating the decades of the various pop culture stuff, music, films,
gotcha.
all that. And then across from that, what's called Hourglass Lake is the new Art of Animation Resort. And when I say new, I think it's like 15 years old now. But yeah, it honestly just depends. The Polynesian is a luxury level of resort. They call them a deluxe resort, and those are that's a beautiful place. Although they did destroy that lobby, it no longer has the beautiful waterfall. Yeah, now it looks like a La Quinta in there now with like a little tiny fountain in the center.
And is Tomorrowland hotels that the monorail goes through? Is that?
No, that's not Tomorrowland. And now it just fell out of my head. What the name of the resort is? But you have Grand Floridian opposite that, or right next to Polynesian, and the Contemporary Resort is what.
The Contemporary, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
And the monorail does pass right through. It's really a wicked design. It's very cool, and they use air curtains to keep out, the riffraff, like the birds and stuff. Although they still get in, but and that actually got a recent remodel. I'm not sure it was much of an upgrade, but the funny thing is Disney is taking out everything that makes them unique and standardizing their interiors. So like the uniqueness of, let's say, the Animal Kingdom Lodge with all of their inspired carved furniture and very thing. Eventually that's all going to be replaced.
That's too bad.
Hey, it's been happening over at the the Wilderness Lodge, the big thing that looks like it belongs in Yosemite. Yeah, they've been downgrading those rooms too. So you're taking these beautiful things with these iconic furnishings.
Wow.
You're muting it all. Disney is really honestly, going straight up neo-Marxist at every level.
The neo-Marxist hotel.
It is. Well, that's what they've been doing. They've taken out the uniqueness and they've given you the sea of sameness. It's odd. I mean, and they've obviously done that with they've obviously done that in a lot of different areas of their company, and the maintenance is suffering. There's all kinds of bad things. But anyway, we got off on a tangent.
Yeah. Well, I have one story. Back in 1972, when I was visiting Budapest, there was a giant block of Soviet-built apartment blocks. They're very. My Soviet friend was very proud of the contribution that the Russians made, because the Soviets made to Hungary. And I looked up and I went, "There's no doors to the balconies," and he went, "Fuck. You're right." They had balconies, but they had no doors to them. They had forgotten to put doors on. Welcome to communist building policies.
Yeah, it's a Soviet way.
The Soviet way.
Makes it harder to leave that building in desperation.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you make your own door.
I bet.
That's right.
Very strange. Yeah.
How did we get on this? Although this was fascinating.
Yeah, sorry. I know lots of random baloney.
No, I'm glad you told me. That was cool.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, any more super chats?
I don't know.
Yeah, let's Tom, let's do a few more super chats.
Sorry, I fall asleep there.
You fall asleep while we were talking about Soviet
What?
I'm out. He's like,
Waltman says, sent an email to Tom about those TMNT figures. This is one of the Marion County, California targets. Found 4 of them back to back.
So is this the white April versus the black April controversy?
Well, here's the thing.
We don't know.
This has been brought to my attention initially by somebody in our Facebook group. And then it looks like Walt has sent me some more images here too. Thank you so much, Walt. I'm not sure what to do with this until I hear from Playmates. I formally sent them requests through their actual press department. They have not responded. So as of right now, I'm going to take that as no comment from Playmates at this point. We don't know what the deal is. Now, the current speculation in the toy community has been that the early run of these toys were a bit too dark. And so they lightened them up a little bit. Because, well, I don't know, it sounds dumb, but it makes sense in a sense that I guess from what people are saying compared to the pictures that we're seeing and compared to real life, April isn't as dark, or she's darker. The lighter April is darker in real life than the darker April, or than the lighter April looks in pictures, and the darker April is much darker than the darker April looks in pictures. So it sounds to me like the first run was way too dark. They lightened it up for the second runner down the line. And this has been the more common thing going on right now, especially since the movie's been out in China now and nobody has said anything about April being a different color in the movie. Not that anybody necessarily thought that was going to be the case anyway, but we all thought it was kind of odd and strange that you have two different variants on it, but that's most likely the case. Until we hear more, though, we can't really say anything else. And I know we haven't talked much about it on this show, but funnily enough, the story took off. And most people have given me credit for it, so thanks to those who have. So, but
we just used some South Asian bleaching. That's all we did. So don't worry, anyone.
Yeah, it's the Indian way, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Then moving on.
Indeed, and we have two cultures. We're in a multiverse. What the fuck is going on? Or is this like multiplicity?
I don't know. I was here and then I wasn't anymore. And apparently, well, I'm still here.
You're still a remnant. Is this like the Flash, where if you go too fast, you create a variant of yourself or whatever you call it?
What happens on Fridays?
Oh, he's gone now. He left.
Friday's weird. Yeah, my
alternate universe culture died. He will be missed.
Yeah.
We will remember him. Okay, anyway, Final Smash says people forget that Feige got his start with the Fox X-Men. Is bringing the Fox Marvel characters in the MCU a desperate move? What's the panelist's favorite Fox Marvel movie? Okay, well, you got a couple questions here. Do I think it's a desperate move? Well, I'm curious what everybody else thinks, but we don't know what they're going to do yet. All we know is that in Deadpool 3, some of these people are going to be popping up. I had just heard some rumors that they may not recast everybody, but they may do more of a mixture of the First Class and classic X-Men for this universe, which would be insane. And at this point, let it go. I mean, we've already seen Patrick Stewart die how many times as Professor X? At least 3, and I'm not even exaggerating. But otherwise, like, yeah, that's what I pointed out before too, is that Disney already has an X-Men, and you just use their theme song right there, Paul. They were one of the producers on the original Fox X-Men cartoon, Buena Vista. Disney Animation did the animation for Marvel for years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
one of my favorite.
They own it. They can use that song. They can use everything in that show. They can use that resemblance. Yeah.
Yeah, they can.
That was a good series.
Yep. So we'll have to see what happens here with Deadpool 3 as far as whether or not they actually what they do with the X-Men in the MCU. But as far as our favorite Marvel Fox Marvel movie, that's a good question. Paul, what's your favorite one of the Fox Marvel film?
Okay, so I'm going to be a heretic that I actually like the first 3. The first one was a bit threadbare. It was actually shot in Toronto, and it was clear that they were Fox was, keeping back the budget just to see whether the movie was going to fly. I thought the second one was great. And I actually loved the third one because it felt completely comic booky. I know that is the most hated of the X-Men's, I believe. No.
Origins is more so now, yeah.
And the one with the girl who played who replaced Femke.
Yeah, I was gonna say the last couple have been worse than that. And
so I loved Femke.
One from Game of Thrones, you mean, right?
Yes, yeah. The girl from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, that was the one like Dark Phoenix.
Yes, that was terrible. Like beyond terrible. So for me, the first 3 as a bunch, I really enjoyed.
No, I mean 3 has, especially looking back on it compared to some of the other stuff we got. I understand. Like there was a lot of bits in 3 I liked. There's just other stuff that was just like, what the hell? You know?
And the ending was great.
X-Men 3, X-Men Origins Wolverine, because it was even worse.
Yeah. So yeah,
that's the one I was gonna. That's what I said. Is people hated that one more? Yeah.
Okay. So lots to hate.
Culture. What's your favorite one?
X-Men film.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Fox.
it doesn't have to be X-Men. Anything. Fox Marvel.
You can pick the Daredevil director's cut if you want to.
Yeah, you can pick Trank if you want.
No, I think Showgirls.
That's MGM.
No,
I still need to set you up with the full master.
I think I enjoyed most First Class, but I'm probably one of those rare birds.
I've been teasing with my 4K one anyway.
Yeah. I mean, gosh, I would jump at something more controversial, but I really did enjoy that film, and I've gone back and watched it more than once. That's usually my barometer for, is this good?
Andre?
My go-to answer is actually Deadpool, but if we want to go controversial, the extended cut of Daredevil.
Yeah, I could see that.
I like that one.
The one
I
with
liked Logan.
The one with Affleck?
Yeah.
Have you seen the extended cut?
No, the Jennifer Garner was
a completely different.
Wretched.
Yeah.
The extended cut makes it much better. Yeah.
Like if you wonder if you like, do you remember Coolio being in it? If he isn't, you've seen the sucky cut.
I don't remember Coolio being in it.
Exactly. You've seen the sucky cut. There's a new cut of that movie.
Coolio.
They still should have cut the playground scene out of the director's cut, Andre. But no, like I really liked Logan. I mean, as far as performances and all that business, I hate saying it, but probably the best of the best. Gotta go with X-Men 2. I mean, X2 really nailed, I think it's one of those rare sequels that's better than the original.
Yeah. It was.
It's not spoken of much about today, but it's one of those that really, really set the comic book genre running.
No, it was really, really well done. Last of Logan was okay.
I like Logan. Logan was also really, really good.
And but now, retroactively looking back at it,
that's the thing.
Yeah,
I like the performances in it though. That's what I'm really giving it credit for. Like,
sure, but I mean, it kind of started. It kind of was part of this whole old men bad.
I know.
Kind of a trend.
It's basically the Mad Max Fury Road of this thing. I get it. Yeah. I get it. I'm not gonna deny that, and because I'm one of the few people who has always said that Mad Max Fury Road was overrated, and I saw some of the problems with it back then. That people were just like, "Oh, you're just being whatever." But now, I guarantee most people, if you watch that movie now, you would see the woke all over it.
I think the old guy trope started with The Dark Knight, Frank Miller's comic.
Kind of. Well, I mean, Unforgiven is where it really started.
Oh, okay.
If you think about it.
Was that before?
And that was I think so. Well, no, you're right.
No, Unforgiven came after Frank Miller.
You're right.
Comics.
But as far as like this trope in Hollywood with like but then it was okay, and you can do it good. Like even Logan's good. It's just that it doesn't necessarily need to be done to everything. That's the problem. And that's
But I mean, there's only so many tropes available.
I mean, it works for Batman. It works for Logan. It wouldn't work for Superman. I don't even know if it worked for Spider-Man.
With the gut.
That's my issue. That's why I didn't say Logan, because Logan, I love the hell out of it at the time when I saw it. But upon reflection, it has that old broken man thing, and I'm going to subtract a few points for that because it doesn't hold up. Although Logan and Professor X are character that lends itself to, so if you were ever going to use it, that is the place to use it. But still, that whole trope has aged so badly ever since. Which is unfortunate for the movie, because the movie standalone is still really, really good. It's just the world around the movie, which means that for me right now, I view it as less than I did. But give it more time again, and I'm sure it's going to age much better again.
Like
we're forgetting the movie that actually did it. Yes, like Showgirls. The movie that actually did it that pissed us all off was The Last Jedi. That's what we're ignoring. Like, we got to remember. And the problem with that, and I still stand by it, that movie could have been a decent movie had Luke got off his ass at the end and not literally phoned it in. That's the thing that I think turned people off is you can have the unforgiven Luke, right? But at the end of that movie, he's got to go, shit, I got to go save my sister and pull that X-Wing out of the water, get in that X-Wing and go save his fucking sister. That's what he needs to do. That's what the audience wanted to see. They didn't want to see him project himself across the universe and die from forcing himself to death.
Yeah,
like that was
he was like force sexting, kind of like.
Because you want to know why we didn't get the ending that Unforgiven has. That's why Unforgiven works, because he is, beaten down and broken through that whole movie, but at the end he goes in and he kicks the shit out of Gene Hackman, and Gene Hackman goes, I don't deserve this. And he goes, deserves got nothing to do with it. You need that. You have to have that moment where you're broken down bad guy says, you know what, I may not be as good as I once was, but I'm good once as I ever was, motherfucker. Now I'm coming for you. And that's what you need. And you don't have that moment in some of these movies. And that's what you have to have. You can do the broken down hero, but you have to give him the moment to have that glory at the end.
No, absolutely. There's a scene in the TV show Grimm where the main character's aunt, who comes back to help him, is injured and she's in the hospital, and one of the bad guys comes in dressed as a priest to pull the plugs on her on all the hospital gear that she's plugged into, and she's completely decrepit, but she is a Grimm fighter, and she has the last bit of energy left, and it's a great fight scene in the hospital where she takes out the guy in the priest outfit and then dies, and you go, wow, that's the way. That's the way you go.
Yeah. And Logan took elements from Old Man Logan. This is true of John Apocalypse. In fact, I think it did better in some cases, because Old Man Logan's got some batshit crazy stuff in it, like
it does, and
the incest Hulk babies and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's move on here. Thank you for that question, Final Smash. We got Dr. Long Dongler who sends us a super sticker. Thank you so much. I'm sure it's a thumbs up. I got a proposition for you guys. We got over 450 likes. If we can get those likes up to 1K before we're done, I've got half a beef stick here that's got Sadie's name on it. But
wow.
you guys,
wow,
you guys are gonna make sure she gets that. If you don't get us to 1K, I can't give it to her.
Yeah.
So you gotta give me some incentive. Let's keep it going, guys. Get those likes. There's more than enough of you in the chat to get this
I think we should change the topic back to Soviet architecture, and we'll get it.
I think so. Thorin Volmika has been a member for 15 months. Thank you so much. I'm just going to keep moving on. STR Red Wolf brings us some sad news. Yes, I remember hearing about this yesterday. Pour one out for Johnny Hardwick, age 64, and voice of King of the Hills, Dale Gribble. Also, he was a writer on the show as well.
Yeah, he was.
People don't know.
Yeah. So that means that now we can never have a proper King of the Hill again.
Well, they were asking if there were some people that were curious how much work had gotten done on the revival before the strike happened. And but I don't know. I really don't know. That's sad.
But I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if he was able to be any part of that, considering we have no idea, if he was in very good shape or not, as far as like if he was sick or anything like that. We don't know any specifics, but 64 is way too young, and yeah, he was definitely a big part of that show. And I'm with Andre. I'm curious how you continue on without him. I don't know. Then we got what's your first thought here? Who says I was gonna say, did culture freeze again? And then his eyes moved. Disney and the DC are the embodiment of Sideshow Bob, constantly walking into rakes at this point. Oh, back when The Simpsons was good. Callum Lyle's in the house and says, if Megan Rapinoe gets cast in Rapinoe, I don't know who that even is.
Soccer.
Gets cast. Oh, that chick who missed the fucking goal. That's how much I give a shit. Yeah, gets cast in Star Wars. She can teach stormtroopers how to aim. Well, other than that, I think she did it on purpose. A wasted life. You really think she did it on purpose, huh?
No, that was her skill level being demonstrated right there.
That's blowing it when it matters most, kids.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the life is more full of those kind of moments than the other, but some people like to think that's not the way the world works. Final Smash 1689 says people forget that Feige got hit. Oh, we got this one already. Did I?
Did get that one, yes.
He didn't send it again, did he?
Well, let's
I
just
hope
read
not.
it, yeah, but
Oh no, I didn't get these marked off. That's my fault.
Yeah.
That's my fault. We got that one. We got this one. Okay, this is where we left off. All right. We got this. Or no, this is the last one we got here. Yes.
Yeah. We got
Okay.
that.
Master of Trek sends in 14 South African rands. It says Strange New Worlds ends with a thud, and CBS is starting to panic.
Well, they needed to have been in panic for a long time.
I was gonna say, I don't. This thing has been dead for a while. If they're panicking now, it's a little late. It's kind of like panicking after the car crash.
I think this is empirical proof as to the utter incompetence of Kiefer Goldsman. Like if anyone is wavering at all as to whether this guy deserved the Oscar, no, it was a complete accident.
He needed to hand that back, I think.
Complete accident. Just an utterly horrendous, misdirected series of garbage. Nonsense.
I lasted like the first 2 episodes, and I haven't been bothered to see any more since. Maybe I'll get around to it at some point. Maybe, but then again, maybe not. So Tom, like I've also been like hearing rumors that this thing is canceled and stuff like that. I want to hear a secondary opinion because all of Kurtzman track has like more lives than cats. So yeah, I'd love to hear from a variety of sources of exactly what is going on behind the scenes of this and what CBS have to say, or Paramount now have to say in their defense.
They never say anything.
Well, of course not. But like what the sources will say behind the scenes, of course, publicly, like it's just expanding it into new customer groups and fan bases and what have you. Like just spin.
And I don't understand this nonsense of trying to attract a modern audience that actually isn't interested in the property to begin with. Like, why? I just don't get it. I mean, the blueprint for Star Trek has been well laid out between not just TOS, but the subsequent shows. And there's a lot of decent stuff in Deep Space Nine and The Next Generation. There's a lot of hit and miss also, but overall, they really got it on a good track. And I just don't understand why they can't follow the path. Why they can't follow the script that exists and make entertaining product. I'm just not getting it. Why
they want to put their own stamp on it because they're narcissists.
Yeah, probably.
I mean, I wish I could tell you that there was some other reason, but really it's that they want to make it different just for the sake of making it different.
There's something in woke ideology that the past is all bad. And I think that plays into this.
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. Not the only part, but it's part of it for sure.
It's such a good cast. It was such a good cast too.
Yeah. So it's a waste.
Yep.
Waste. Moving on.
Indeed. We've got Storyman Jack in the house that says new vamps are the basis of Halloween stories this year. This is my advertisement budget this month. So I hope they're dead. I think he means I hope they're not dead. Cause yeah, we were kind of discussing earlier, or did we talk about this on the show or was it before the show? I think it was on the show where we talked about, yeah, I think the cycle of vampires might be dead, but for your sake, hopefully they're not, Storyman. Callum Lyle says, this'll probably never happen, but if Tom was paid to watch Final Battle of Rise of TMNT of the Shredder and the Krang, would you do it stream? I would be completely lost because I only watched the first episode and I wanted to kill myself the whole time I was watching that. So this would be an endurance test beyond all belief. Of course, watching TMNT Mutant Mayhem was quite the endurance test. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it, Callum. I just don't know if I don't know what you would expect as far as my reactions, because I wouldn't really have any basis to go on story-wise. I'd just be like, okay, this is just a bunch of madness, or I would maybe comment on the fight choreography one way or the other or something. I don't know. I could try it, Callum. I'm not saying I wouldn't do it. Finding the time and all that business would be another thing too, but I only watched the first episode, so I'd have no idea where the series went from there. But then Callum says, to help get over Seth Rogen's white guilt movie. I don't know. I don't know if Rise is any better though, brother. That's the problem. It's in the same vein to me. Eclipse Warlord says, hello from Anime Matsuri. Oh, there's that going on right now. Won't be staying long today, but we'll catch the replay as able. One day, I hope to meet all of you in person. Well, thank you, Eclipse Warlord. In fact, Andre and I were just talking about trying to figure out a way to get him to the U.S. at least at some point, hopefully this year.
Inside the next 365 days.
Well, hopefully by this November, and we're not going to get into all the specifics, but that's kind of the point. But we don't want to,
and probably will require.
We'll see about that. Hopefully, inside the next 300, we'll see what we can do here.
You've been saying that for 3 years, Andre.
No. That's recent. For the past 3 years, I've been saying as soon.
I know. Part of it is because of COVID.
Now
but
they will allow me in. That was like other matters.
I know.
Yeah.
What were you going to say, Paul?
No, I'm okay.
Yeah. Now is actually when I am legally allowed to go back to to America, which is awesome. And
yes, indeed.
Thinking about time.
We got a new member. We got Conan, who's been a member for 4 months. Thank you so much. Abdulio says, "Have you guys seen what's been going on with Best Buy?" I seen a little bit of it.
No.
Is it new? Or is it like the new thing? Like, did they find I know that Disney, they got Mulvaney 2.0 to dress up as Mickey Mouse.
Oh, no. This isn't like that. This is what this is something to do with their hiring practices.
Okay, we have to look this up.
Okay, so this is like another ESG
yes.
white people need not apply thing?
Yes. And then this was going around. Let me see if I can find it here. Okay, we've got, they won't allow whites to participate in the management training program.
Yeah, I see. Well, they're not the only ones. Remember?
And now I guess James O'Keefe also found that they are also discriminating against Christians as well. The program's racial requirements have led to accusations of racial discrimination.
Yeah. But this, here's the thing, that this is isn't anything that's unique to Best Buy.
No.
I may have been exposed, but this is par for the course. This is one thing that annoyed me with the Barbie movie, which we'll get back into here, how they had to invent patriarchy for the movie version of it. In reality, they have the exact same programs going on there. If you're a white dude and you're working in Mattel, you better be content to stay at your post, because that's where you'll be. You have absolutely no career trajectories, because for all of the internal programs there, white people, white straight dudes in particular, need not apply.
Well, and I don't know if too many people know this, but they're supposed to be, I was told this by the guy when I bought this recent PC that I'm on now. Like after this year, the Geek Squad will no longer be doing house visits and all this other shit. They're shutting down a bunch of their shit anyway. So a lot of their programs that they have are going to be shed here in the next year.
They're falling apart. I mean, they've actively been collapsing, as an entity for the better part of 3-4 years now.
Yeah. Well, that's because they've got nothing anymore. They don't have the movies and music anymore. They barely sell appliances anymore. Yeah. The Geek Squad was one of their things, but I'm sure they're being put out of business by Apple and other competitors. And
well, interestingly enough, they're the ones that pulled Geek Squad into Best Buy. They bought that company out.
Oh, I didn't know that. But yeah, they're basically shutting it. Well, I mean, they're still going to have it from my understanding, but it's only going to be in-store only or something like that from what the guy was telling me.
Contractor installs are not cheap.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, this is a changing time. Maverick Christian says, Chato's recent video has a nice frantic skit. Oh, does it? I didn't get a chance to see it yet.
Yes. I talked. I did a survey. I like doing these Twitter surveys. They're fun. And I asked people whether smartphones were a net good or a net bad. And it came out surprisingly, almost 600 people participated, and 62% said net bad, which I was surprised about. And then so I turned that into a video and talked about my experiences pre-smartphone, my experiences with, I think I talked about this last show with MSN Messenger, and how that was maybe the first addictive thing online. Of course, it wasn't on phones, but it was on computers.
There was also Yahoo and ICQ. People were saying
Yep.
that too. Yeah.
Yep. But MSN Messenger was the real creepy one.
Yeah, it wasn't good. You get a lot of real creepy stuff happening there.
Correct.
And I like I said, I for one abandoned that rather quickly. Of course, at the time I was in IT, so
you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And so so in my most recent video, that's what I talk about. And I also included at the very end a frantic sketch from 1994 where it's about the Crackberry. So we were very prescient about people being addicted to the BlackBerry smartphone of its time.
Oh yeah, man, I couldn't get enough of that little trackball, man. I was
and the thing is, the point that I made in the video was that people are addicted to it, and it was pre-algorithm. All they had was 2 apps that people were addicted to: email and BBM. That was it. They had no special algorithm sauce to feed your fever brain and coerce you into doing even more mental crimes. That's all they had. And it was enough. And now it's worse. So yes, and I included that frantic sketch. And so I invite everybody to go on to Call Me Chato, and I'm very proud of that sketch.
Yeah, and that was a weird time. The ICQ was a little less scary than any of the other ones.
It was less popular. I mean, it was popular, but not mainstreamy.
No, it was all of us. Exactly. Yeah. All of us IT guys were using ICQ. So
yes. That was nerd time.
Yeah.
But parents were scared to death of their young girls being groomed over MSN Messenger.
Yeah, because they should be anymore, as we're learning. Yeah.
Well, hey, man, that was the first question all those freak shows would ask. ASO.
Yeah. Well, those days have changed. Now you just swipe.
Yeah. Thanks for asking. It's a sketch we're very proud of, and it's a fun bit.
Actually comes to start a classic late show reaction channel. Well, if a lot of those things weren't so copyrighted and shit, yeah, I could.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great, right? You get me and Paul and maybe somebody else like Tom or somebody in there, and we just all react to amazing old, like, I'm telling you, variety shows. That's what YouTube could actually kind of.
I hear what you guys are saying.
On live archives, if it was possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know what you guys are saying. Like, I think it would do okay, but they need to find that formula again more so, because you're never going to get a modern audience to give a shit about Rip Torn or anybody like that. You know what I mean? Like, it ain't going to happen. But I'm sure you can get some of these things. You got to get that kind of spark back. Yeah,
I know you'd mentioned it earlier, and I didn't want to talk about it, but going through the TV guides, and I've now gone through almost 15 of them since 1970. One of the things that you'll notice is the networks kept trying to resurrect the variety shows, and they never lasted. There was the resurrection of Mary Tyler Moore had a variety show, Dick Van Dyke had a variety show, the black guy who dressed like a woman who stayed straight.
Oh, Geraldine.
Geraldine, yes.
Oh gosh, Ben Vereen and not.
No.
God damn it, who was it?
I
know who you're talking about, but I can't think of his name.
RuPaul or anything.
No. This is way before RuPaul's time.
So you got it right. And
Flip Wilson, thank you guys. Yeah.
So a very talented guy. He had a variety show. The attempts at variety shows were endless, and in fact, there was probably one every single year. And more recently, the one woman from SNL, she got like 2 or 3 variety attempts on NBC the last decade, and they all failed. There's just something about it, like maybe a bit too vaudevillian. Bill Cosby had a variety show after the Bill Cosby Show, and it was a massive failure. And he had not Jim Carrey, but he had Latka, the guy who played Latka in Taxi.
Oh, Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman in it. I mean, it's really quite.
You're talking about the original Cosby Show, not the one from the 80s. You're
I'm
talking about
talking
the
about
other
his
one.
after
variety
the sitcom, he had tried a variety show.
Yeah, but you're talking about before the family sitcom, though, when he was the Huxtables.
No,
'Cause
this is
Kaufman was
post-Huxtable.
already dead by then.
No, I don't.
Kaufman died in like 81 or 82.
Okay. Anyways,
But
I-
yeah, but Cosby also had the 70s sitcom too.
yeah,
for a while. Yeah.
maybe. Anyway, so I remember Kaufman on a very odd.
Unless you're mixing up, because like I know Bill would sit in for Carson once in a while too.
No. Anyway, I might have the wrong variety show.
Could be.
So I would love to have the Carol Burnett kind of experience return.
Yes,
but,
that's the perfect show, right? That really was for variety.
You need another Carol Burnett. And listen, Saturday Night Live won't even let Carol Burnett on their show,
which is insane.
Which is
it's 84. Kaufman died. Yeah, I was gonna say I knew it was early 80s. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
you got me there.
No, it's fine. But no, you're right. Like, but I know part of that is it was so old hat already by the 80s, and outside of the nighttime shows that was, and then you had Star Search, which kind of replaced that.
Yeah.
And then that kind of turned over to American Idol.
Yeah, you're right.
And that's kind of where it gotten cheapened, and the two have kind of separated. I mean, you had Letterman, who still had stupid human tricks and things like that on, and once in a while, and things of that
But you're
sort.
right. I think The Voice is the modern version of the variety show.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
a good insight there, Tom.
well, because like I said, you had Star Search for a while. Like, people forget how long Star Search was on.
That was Ed McMahon was on that.
Exactly. And then when American Idol first came on, I'm like, oh, I remember when this show was called Star Search and actually had comedians and other shit on it too.
You know what? I remember Star Search with a very young Alanis Morissette and a guy beat her. I mean, not physically, but I mean, won over her.
I was going to say, was it Dave Coulier?
And I,
as if it was physical.
And I'd never heard Ed McMahon say that because I was a huge fan of the show. He said, "This is the first time I will tell you that you, the judges, are wrong." I thought that was wild. I mean, I didn't know Alanis Morissette from A Hole in the Ground back in the day, and it was still maybe a decade later that she did a
Say
jagged
what you will
Little
about her. She has a fucking voice. That's why.
Oh my God! But that was really wild.
And people forget how big that album was when it came out. I mean, everybody bought that fucking CD.
It was a good album. But she was also a disco princess at the very beginning, which
wasn't she a child actress too?
No, not that I'm aware of.
I thought she was on a variety show on Nickelodeon for a while there.
Oh, you got me there.
I could have swore. But it was Canadian imported though too. That was the other. It's not. Was it You Can't Do This on Television, or was it the other one? Somebody in the chat will get it.
Okay. Yep. They'll get it. I didn't know she did any kind of.
Yeah, when she was younger. Trex32 says, this is for everyone on the panel. If you became CEO of Disney tomorrow, what's your first order of business? To right the ship. Good question. Let's start with Paul, since he's the executive.
Well, the first thing I would do is get that place cleaned up and make it family friendly. Like, just go crazy. My understanding is that it's quite dirty. And I think you need to clean up the washrooms and really make it feel.
You think the toilets are the problem, Paul?
No. You gotta. No. I know this from experience, is that you need to get everything right.
Yeah.
Even the smallest thing has a profound effect. It's additive. And then I would chop costs every place else and then start rebuilding the other, because I mean, they're not making any money from movies right now. They really do need to, and then bring in proper talent to run things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we're at. I mean, you got.
Well, one thing you're forgetting here right now is they are saving money by not releasing movies, Paul.
Yes,
because then they're not losing any money, right? Culture.
But yes, let Culture finish.
Yeah.
No, I just was adding to what Paul was saying. I mean, you have to gut that place and get it cleaned up. And yes, I mean, obviously the minutia there of the toilets is an entirely other element to that, but you literally have to clean house and get rid of the ideologues, every single one of them. You have to completely rebuild from HR up. But you have to start. It's a top down and a bottom up operation at that point, because everything's been infected with an ideology that's very anti-family.
Yep.
And, yeah.
Yep. And it has to look like they've got, they're having fun again.
So what would you do then, Culture, to
Oh
change?
gosh, I would bring in. Okay, so let's say I had like a silver wish list. I'd go out and I'd pick out. Let's say I'd bring in Tony Baxter to lead the charge in rebuilding Imagineering, so that the parks start to get right. I would query Josh on if he really does have an affinity for running the parks, because otherwise I'd find a way to get him out the door. You used to have films and other entertainment products that were there to encourage development of children and not indoctrinate them. So we'd get back to doing that. We'd bring you would bring back the ABC classic, A Wonderful World of Disney program to talk about all the new family engagement things that you're going to do with the company. You'd put a figurehead in charge of that. Maybe me, I don't know, but somebody that gets in front of the camera and talks specifically about these are the things that we're changing at the Disney company. We've got this great family film coming out. We've got this wonderful family attraction, and we're doing all these wonderful things. And it basically just 180 what's been happening over the course of the last few years. It wouldn't be that, like I said, it wouldn't be that hard, but it would take a long time, because you do have to clear out all the bad apples. I mean, HR needs to be head by somebody like, I don't know, that doesn't have an ideology that's driving them to push, for over representation of certain classes and parties. We're seeing lawsuits now starting to get filed against companies that have been doing that. Disney doesn't want to be in the midst of one of those, so they got to really change.
One thing that would be inexpensive that I would do in the parks, they've let all the Jim Henson characters die.
Oh, they've languished. Yes, indeed.
And that would be one of the first less expensive things I would do, because they are still much loved.
Well, they have the portable Muppet Labs animatronics, which are driven by robotics, and those are fantastic. You've got Beaker and Bunsen Honeydew, and that little mobile attraction that you could drive around the parks. I agree with you. I don't know why they're not doing that. I don't know why you don't have all types of elements like that. That was originally, those types of elements were going to be included in the Galaxy's Edge attractions in Florida and California, and you were going to have actual robots that interacted with droids and things that would interact with people. A lot of the elements that were going to be interactive got pulled out of there for budgetary reasons. There's zero, and then they tried to convince everybody that no, all that's going to be over in the Star Cruiser, and the Star Cruiser flopped in a year. So, I mean, it's just, like I said, there's a lot of that, but you're 100% right. They've missed every opportunity of interactive entertainment, and I think they have to get back to that.
Andre?
I would begin with firing the entire HR department, and I would replace them with people that don't come from a pure HR background, but an HR adjacent background that can do the job, but that have none of the ESG training, so that these people can be trusted. I would make sure they have good sound values.
Yep.
After I have the HR department in control, I fire everyone else. I mean, every last person, the entire fucking company.
No, I agree with you, dude.
No, I'm not finished.
Yeah.
I fire literally everyone, from every CEO, every department director, every underling, every store worker, every last motherfucking one. And then they can all reapply for their positions, going through this new HR department, justifying what they have done and why they should be rehired. If they don't impress in that first interview, their position gets announced to the public. If they think that they can do a better job than their current boss, they're welcome to apply for the position of that boss. You can also reapply for his own position, and then let HR department sort it out. I would fire literally everyone in the company and have them reapply. This is something that has been done in smaller scales, like for instance, in certain European countries that have been rife with productions, with corruption. For instance, police departments, they went in and they fired everyone. Literally everyone had to reapply for their positions. You've rooted out corruption overnight. That's what I do with Disney.
That would be fun to watch.
I'll expand on that since we don't have a ton of time here and we're losing culture and Paul soon, and they've got a couple super chats we got to get to. I'll say you continue that, Andre, onto the entertainment side of things. You literally cancel everything that was in
Yes.
pre-production that isn't already at least 2/3 of the way done. And at that
Oh, and
point, you
you know what?
reevaluate.
Some things, and the things that are more than 2/3 done, if it's bad, I cancel that too.
Exactly. I was just gonna say, then you go through what you have to work with, salvage what's left, and then you get Disney back to entertainment wise what it was before. Because it never used to be this thing where they would release 12 fucking movies a year. You were lucky if you got 3-4 movies at best on a big year for Disney. There used to be like 1 or 2 live action films, an animated film, and some other project they would have one or the other.
In the
Yeah.
heyday, every studio did at least 20 movies a year.
The studios did, but Disney was never like that.
Okay.
Disney would have one animated film they would build their year on, and then the rest of the year you'd have like your Mighty Ducks or
you don't consider Disney a studio.
I do, but it's not. They're more of a production company. Yes, I get what you're saying. Like they should treat themselves more like a production company instead of a studio, because like that's what I was saying is it used to be Disney. They had other studios underneath them like Touchstone and all that stuff and Dimension that ran on their own. See, that's what Disney needs to get back to and let those guys do their kind of thing. That's what I didn't understand with Fox is you brought Fox in, and instead of bringing in somebody to head up Fox as its own fucking thing, its own entity, making their own movies and putting out their own product, you've basically just kind of sat on them. And that's what they used to do. Disney would release, like I said, about 4 big movies a year. You had your animated movie at the Christmas time or summertime, and you had your Mighty Ducks or your Honey, I Shrunk the Kids or your Incredible Journeys and all your other stuff the rest of the year. They would have about 3-4 Cool Runnings, what have you, 3-4 movies like that a year. And then you had your video, straight to video department. And that would generally furnish your movies that you would generate a movie for like your either ABC, like what Culture was saying, like you had like that doll movie. What's the one?
Megan?
The one. No. There was one a few years back that Anna was just talking about that it was a better Barbie movie that had
Tyra Banks.
Yeah, that one. Like they had those kind of movies that went straight to television and or straight to the Disney Channel.
Okay,
and
so
then those would also feed the video department.
Okay,
so it was constantly this cyclical thing of feeding each other. Yeah,
basically, in a backhanded way, what you're saying, and I've said this before, the beginning of the downfall of Disney was the purchase of properties that were not core and they didn't understand.
Exactly.
The purchase of Star Wars, the purchase of Marvel, the purchase maybe of Pixar, but that they just handled that badly, and Fox, of course. You know what? To tell you the truth, the first thing I would do is sell off Star Wars and Marvel. If the ship is sinking, those are my biggest assets. I would put them out on a fire sale because not only have they ruined them, it's an anchor on Disney. They have lost their way. They no longer know how to make Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I don't know who of you brought that movie up, but
me. But yeah.
Okay, there you go. There is the quintessential Disney movie. They have lost their way. They no longer how to make Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's because they bought Marvel, Star Wars, and Pixar.
Yep.
So there you go.
I mean, and that's the thing is they used to be able to do that every year, and I think that's the main thing you need to do. But we are losing Culture and Paul here, so let's get to these super chats. This one's for Culture. Mario Trillo says, so Culture, the whole standardizing is happening across all franchises, fast food, hotel, gas station, you name it. It's standardizing. It's getting insane. But he'll what we can do at this what can we do at this point? Yeah, gotcha.
Well, look, I mean, honestly, you can rebel against the sameness. You support things that are unique, that have actual theming. You're seeing some companies go this direction where you're getting La Quinta no matter what, and you're seeing, like at Disney, or you're seeing Universal, Orlando, Universal theme parks and resorts. They're theming to the hilt. I mean, even their resorts now that they're building are like the Portofino Resort and in the east side and all, beach side, excuse me. Those are unique properties. They're decorated uniquely. They're treated uniquely within that ecosphere. But you've got McDonald's. They've got a certain look, but all the McDonald's have a certain look, or they're supposed to. The problem is you don't want everything to maintain the same architectural standard that doesn't differentiate itself from its neighbor. And I think the minute you get away from that, any of those types of unifying aesthetics, you're creating that sea of same, the sadness that I think is. I think that it's lazy, and it really shows a lack of care in so many different ways. I think that's probably the thing that offends me the most, is when you unify things like that aesthetically, that you're honestly showing a lack of care for what preceded you. It's one of the reasons why when you do get rid of a bunch of people all at once, you are essentially clearing out something called institutional knowledge. And that institutional knowledge, the people that have been there and that have had a history there, they understand why things are done a particular way. Disney's always been that way. They hand down jobs to, in a manner that, you learn from somebody who's your senior, who's got merit, and then they move up, and then you move up, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's the same way with why are we preserving, these properties the way they are? Because that's what makes them unique. That's the difference that Disney's abandoning. The Disney difference was that
corporations used to go to the Disney management training program
for the Disney difference.
And do they even offer it anymore?
Disney,
and if they did, would anyone frickin' even go anymore?
I don't think Disney University exists as it did before, as you're describing, because again, you could have a corporate retreat at Disney, go to Disney University and learn how Disney does things, and why they differentiate, why each of these little details in this aesthetic matter. They don't do that anymore because they don't believe that anymore. That's the poison that Iger brought.
Xerox trained many C-level employees.
Yeah.
C level or
C-suite.
letter C level?
C-suite level.
C-suite.
Yeah, okay. I know I was being facetious, but so thank you, Culture. Is there anything? Did you have to leave quite yet, or did you have?
I can wait till after Paul. Yeah, Paul and I can exit together.
Well, Paul's got quite a few
hold
super
hands.
chats. Paul's got quite a few super chats here, and we've got another Canadian joining us. How you doing, Script Doctor?
I'm doing well. Sorry for my tardiness. Had a meeting to listen in on, and then landlord had to fix water with.
Landlord.
Yeah.
Pay your rent and I'll fix your water.
Fix my water and I'll pay your rent.
This is how we answer the door in my neighborhood, kids. Who is it? Landlord. All right. Go ahead.
He's not here, man.
Andre, I got somebody at the door. So
yeah, I'll take it. Kathleen Morrison says for $10, Chato, if you want a variety show, I highly recommend Overlord DVD's Friday Night Frolics on Friday nights. He sings, does impressions, and rants on pop culture. One-man show for hours. So,
but as
recommendation,
as Andre said, this is all moved over to YouTube.
Yeah, but it is YouTube. It's Doomcock.
Yeah, but I'm saying this is
exactly.
The point is all the good stuff that used to be on TV is now on. Hell, there's two dogs that this woman not animates, but is trained to do just these hilarious things. One bulldog and one Australian shepherd dog. They're hilarious.
And the Waltman 4 says, Chato, look up Phoenix Shaving's Black Shroud. This aftershave is an homage to Woodhue, a.k.a. the only aftershave that Dean Martin would wear.
Phoenix Shaving's Black Shroud. Okay.
Sounds complicated.
Yeah.
And then Unknown says for $4.99, has Chato heard of Kill Tony on YouTube? As a comedian, I think he'd love it. The best place for comedy.
Yes, I have heard of it.
There we go. And then let's see. You were disappointed by Doctor Strange, so I think this one is kind of for you as well. Callum Lyle says Strange 2 was supposed to be a magic team-up to fight against Nightmare, and Wanda would overcome her demons and get actual character development. Yeah, that does sound like a better movie, doesn't it?
Yep.
Sadly, not the one we got.
No.
And ActionCom says for $20, Chato, you once talked about the royal jelly in terms of presence. But what would you call people who came up with fascinating off-the-wall ideas that worked, like Dan Aykroyd or James Gunn? And where can we find these people?
Well, a lot of these people came about from doing live shows like Second City. A lot of good stuff comes from live, where people not only learn their craft, they learn what works. The fact that they're interacting with a live audience as opposed to some theoretical Netflix audience, all those things improve your professionalism and your ability to judge just exactly what works and what doesn't work. I think fewer and fewer people are involved in live in whatever way, singing, dancing, comedy, or just, Broadway acting. It just seems to me that there's just fewer and fewer people coming into television and movies with that, really good live experience. And the creative people, I think, for instance, a huge generation of comedians came out of the National Lampoon live tour. And we felt the benefit of that National Lampoon live tour, the Kennys and oh my God, just an unbelievable group of people. But that all came about because they were touring live comedy. You learn an awful lot from that.
Yeah. And a question from everyone. Don Johnston wonders, you guys ever watch Harvey Birdman, Attorney at Law?
Yeah.
One of my favorite shows that mixed in little politics with it while being fair and very clever and funny.
Well, it's
I
very
have never
funny.
seen this.
Very funny show.
Oh yeah, parodies a lot of the Hanna-Barbera characters.
We've seen this
puts them
already.
in parody
Yeah,
situations.
I know.
You
I
got
meant
this
to
one
remove
already?
it.
Okay,
Yes,
well.
I meant to remove it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Chad St. John says, Mr. Chato, what do you think is the appeal of Marxism for so many people? I don't get it myself.
Well, original Marxism is is class struggle, and there's many aspects of it sound good if you are
if you pay attention to the fact that the world doesn't care anything about you, Marxism gives you the false sense that something cares about you.
Right. And they want to take from the rich and give to the poor. They want to equalize. So equity came from Marxism, but not social equity. It was capitalist class equity. Yeah. And you're going to be you're going to be attracted to that. One of the reasons why Marxism really didn't hit hard in Eastern or in the West or in North America was because not union. Well, I guess they were unionized already. No, they weren't. Sorry. That a lot of the workers were already well enough paid that they didn't really care about the, what was going on. So the Marxism really did not hit in North America, although it did infuse unionism. So this is a very big topic. Now we've got racial Marxism, which makes no sense at all, but it's been very successful.
It's been very successful in disrupting the nation. That is for sure. And with that, I think that we have no. Here's one more for you.
That was a wild question.
Say he's got a few.
Okay, yeah. Says Paul, do you remember Real People?
Yep. Real People. I remember the show. Yeah, I think it was on ABC.
And they also had one called Up With People.
I don't think there's any left. I think we went through them. I
think you might have got them all. Okay.
Yeah, I got them all.
If you missed any, I apologize, guys. But thank you for Paul for being here. If you got anything to plug on your way,
we're leaving now because Script showed up.
Yeah, we got to go.
We don't like Script.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm the only one with color who on today. You black and white bastards.
I like Script.
I gotta go.
Somehow that might be racist. I just don't know.
Bye, Script. Bye, Culture. Bye, Andre. Bye, Tom.
Take care.
Take care. Have a good weekend. All right.
Show, Tom.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you've seen this one yet.
Yeah. No. Nice. Very cool.
Yeah, I like that one. We have such sights to show you.
Indeed.
Well, let's get back to some of these super chats here. We've got Patrick Robinson who says, just starting to watching Twisted Metal, already on episode 3. Unless I missed something, no wokeness and just a fun show. Yeah, I've been hearing some semi-good things about it. I might check it out. You guys seen it yet?
No.
I have not, but before we move on with the super chat script, since you just joined us, how's the strike going?
Well, the WGA members are negotiating team are back at the table at the request of the AMPTP again. So this is their their redux part 2 because they kind of botched it last week. The stuff swirling around that I overheard in a meeting that I wasn't formally invited to, but I was able to eavesdrop thanks to some of my friends in the union. We're discussing the fact that yes, they are very, very committed to the 3 key issues. One of which I greatly disagree with, but the first one, of course, is understanding a new residual model when it comes to streaming. The second one is, of course, dealing with AI restrictions and fear of abuse and whatnot. And then the third one, unfortunately, is the minimum and maximum staffing of writers' rooms, which I don't agree with. So those are the 3 main things. Word has already leaked that the AMPTP has some actual counter offers from the initial proposals. So we'll have to wait and see what those counter offers are, and if they are legit counter offers or just stringing people along, so to speak. So that's there was a lot of discussion about that and what that kind of means. I was very disappointed that in what I observed, there were only a couple of people that were disagreeing with the minimum and maximum staffing room. So it's if I was in the room, I'd be like, that's the one thing I'd be willing to trade in if I can get the other 2. But it doesn't look like they might be willing to do that right now, or it all might just be part of a long-term strategy. I wouldn't give them the benefit of that doubt because they haven't been very competent when it comes to their advertising to the public, and except for the fact that they've been pretty good getting ahead of the media plant stories where some of the trades will report, oh, this was the offer that they gave to the WGA, and the WGA using social media and then dropping their official proposals kind of debunks that within 12 hours. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens, but I'm crossing my fingers because if they can maintain being back at the table for today, and they pick up on Monday and they continue negotiations, that's always going to be a good sign.
So if things continue in a good trajectory and the parties keep talking for the rest of the day, that means that an end could be in sight in the next couple of weeks, then perhaps.
Ideally, yeah, that would be fantastic. The other good news is that whatever, well, maybe it's good or bad news, it depends. But whatever ends up becoming agreed with regards to AI will heavily influence what the actors are going to get, because the actors or the writers have pretty much the same argument against AI at this point. So if the WGA agrees to an AI protocol, it most likely will be ideally, it would most likely be in the favor of the writers and the actors for the actors when they go back to the negotiating table as well. Because I don't think it's fair for an actor to not be able to control their own image when going into a role. I think if you're going to scan them, they get to own that image and they get to license it out to a studio if they so choose, as opposed to the other way around.
All right. Well, thanks for the update. It will be interesting to see, because this strike has now lasted longer than the 2007, wasn't it, strike?
I think the 2007 was like 110 days.
Wasn't it 100 days exactly?
Well, it started in early November and it ended in early February. So
okay,
let me double check on that.
I thought that we had already exceeded it in length by now.
Okay. So apparently, yeah, it was exactly 100 days. So yes, we are
that's
now.
What I thought.
We are now 1 day over. Yep.
Yeah. So then it's a matter of exactly how many days. Like it would be like a finally prophetic. You said like 110 days. Now wait and see. This strike lasts 110 days.
Could be, yeah. I will say it this way: getting them back to work would be a good thing for a couple of reasons. Number one, it could actually alleviate a lot of the economic stress that's happening to the businesses that rely on the studios, for work. And with any luck, maybe some of this negotiating the way that they got here might do a shakeup on the executive level a little bit, and force them to realize that, if we're actually doing a new streaming model for streaming services, we want to make money, we probably have to start hiring people that can write shows that make money. Ideally, I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm not going to hold my breath, but ideally.
Yeah. And then, before we continue with the super chats, we have a title that is in the or a topic that is even in the title of the show. So we kind of do have to address it, and that is Barbie is now officially banned in Kuwait, and it may be banned other places around the Middle East as well. And it's banned out of concern for public ethics and social traditions. And Lebanon is working to follow suit. This is being reported by Bounding Into Comics. I'm going to bring it up on screen.
Well, and I know they were trying to work with them, like Warner's was, to like edit the film down to get it there. So evidently they were unable to appease them, it sounds like.
Okay, yeah, because I imagine that a cut that appeases them would be, you think it would be 2 or 3 minutes long?
It'd be all Ken. It'd just be all the Ken scenes.
I mean, that would also be kind of funny.
And actually, you're right. Yeah, and it'd be limited on those because some of them they might consider a little too.
Most of those songs are pretty subservient. I mean, that's like the Ken complaining about like how subservient they are and stuff like that.
You could have the Ken War scene, maybe. That'd be about it.
Yeah, but you can't have the lead up to it.
I know. That's what I'm saying. You could have like that. You can't. I don't know if you could.
You know what you could have? You could have the song, the scene, without any lead up and without any conclusion, just like the 30 seconds of the Ken singing to all the Barbies on the beach when it looks all nice and romantic and stuff. You could have that. And you could have like the 30 seconds.
It'd be like a highlight trailer.
Of the Barbies actually serving the Kens and giving them drink and stuff like that. Yeah, but like that probably. So I'm saying like a 2 or 3 minute cut of the movie. That probably would be approved, but I don't know that Warner would be too happy with a 3 minute cut.
At this point, I don't think Warner's all that worried about it, and that's why I think
I don't think so either.
And I think that's where they got to the point where they're probably like, yeah, we're not cutting any more of this movie out. If this is not enough, then screw you guys, because they're at this point where this movie is popular enough now that the people will get upset if anything, and if they don't, then it's a non-point.
And you know,
I don't think Kuwait and some of these other Middle Eastern countries have enough money to really make that big of a difference in Warner Brothers.
Also, I think it's probably good for the movie, for the target audience. Like, oh, look at these horrible patriarchal societies. Look what they did to your movie. Ladies, go and dump your boyfriend some more just for that.
I mean, that's technically a good thing, because if your girlfriend would dump you over this movie, it's a bad relationship to be in.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like the boys that end up getting dumped, the relationship was toxic, and the toxic person just revealed themselves. Just put it that way.
Oh, no, it reminds me of back in the day, certain marriages that broke up because of American Beauty.
Okay.
Oh no, that was a thing, because
I believe you.
The middle-aged man was getting lame, and then Annette Bening cheats on her husband for kinks, and there's a whole slew of women that thought Annette Bening was in the right. And I remember reading little points about this.
Kevin Spacey was the pervert in that. Don't forget.
Well, he's the pervert, but he's getting getting really high, and his next door neighbor is also, latent homosexual.
There's a whole lot of weird shit going on in that movie.
People thought what's her name was attractive.
I watched. I remember when that movie came out. I'm just like, what in the fuck is it that everybody sees about this? It's a fucking soap opera. It's like, it's like all it needs is the Young and the Restless theme, and we're done. Like, what the fuck? Like, I didn't get why this was like this huge like Oscar darling. I'm like, okay. But anyway,
it was really overrated.
Speaking of movies that are probably going to be Oscar darlings. Barbie, and we have some other breaking news. It turns out as long as you don't want to win a best Oscar, you don't have to worry about the Oscar rules. Everything else is open floor, I guess, Andre, according to this one report. But you cannot get best picture if you don't follow the rules. So already they're making
Concessions.
concessions
they're
for
making
that.
concessions. Right. Okay. They're walking
And
backwards.
then Kathleen Kennedy's house is for sale.
Which one?
The one in
which one of them?
Hollywood, I guess.
Oh,
Or wait,
taxes
let me
are pretty
see.
high.
Okay,
Wait,
so the
hang
one
on.
in Hollywood is for her Hollywood house is for sale.
I want to make sure that's the one. Holy shit, this thing is palatial.
Oh, I don't doubt that for a second. But if her Hollywood,
I think I can bring this up. This isn't a video, so we're good. There is a video here, but I'm not playing the video because it's TMZ. But it's $18.5 million in Malibu, so it's Malibu.
Does she have another like L.A. Hollywood house other than that one?
I'm sure they have.
She has a few in California. I don't know where they are. I just know that she has a few.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure one of the ones she lives in has got the title under Frank Marshall.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Their bathroom is bigger than my whole house. And then also in the news, Lizzo has been dropped from the Super Bowl halftime show.
Oh.
And it made a big thud.
I thought it would have made a crater if they'd actually did that.
It did. It was like extinction level.
Yeah, so she was actually dumped from that. Whoa, that's bananas.
Oh, well, that's part of the reason why. So that is the news wrap up for this morning of all the major news stories. Oh, there's one more. I forgot. Breaking news. The Marvels, the biggest difference from the other MCU movies, according to the director, will be that it's wacky and silly.
The trailer kind of conveyed that.
Yeah, I know. So
you mean like the last 5 Marvel movies, basically?
Yeah, like that's first of all, we already knew that from the trailer, and secondly, it's nothing new. So yeah, that was much ado about nothing. But yeah, hey, it's a headline, I guess. That isn't. Wow, Disney is being sold.
And that's our breaking news. We broke it. All right. Moving on with super chats here. Salvador Cruz has been a member for a year. Well, happy anniversary. We appreciate the support. And we have a member stream hopefully coming up this weekend. Ministry of Wrong Things says, enjoying Cedar Point here in Ohio. It's hotter than a banana split in a Lizzo concert. Oh, that was perfectly timed. But there's still lots of people here. Come on, Bob. Side note from the experience, never abbreviate Cedar Point in text.
I can see some examples where that might not work too well. But yeah, well, enjoy your day in Cedar Point.
Indeed. And then we got Tendo Karyu. I'm probably screwing that up. Sends in $4.99 and says, what makes TMNT interesting is that it's a goofy idea taken seriously. Yes, I don't watch TMNT projects that don't adhere to that. Rise TMNT Mutant Mayhem. I agree. Pretty much everything Nickelodeon has made since 2012. Cthulhu says, Comedy Unleashed is one of the best comedies. Has some of the best comedians of today. I've not seen that yet.
Oh, that's the YouTube channel. Good one.
Check it out. Dark King says, has movie attendance recovered from pre-COVID yet? I think that the audience isn't coming back. Hollywood needs new model based on current audience size, not historic. Mario, etc. are the exceptions. Yes and no, Dark King, because after COVID was over, theaters recovered quite a bit.
Can we please say after the lockdowns, because that was the issue.
Okay, after the lockdowns.
Thank you.
Things were back to normal. I mean, I think Spider-Man and a few other movies showed us that people will come to the movies. We still see that with Barbie and Mario and certain other movies, people will still come to the movies. I think there's a fatigue that has set in. The McDonaldization of movies has set in. The woke factor has set in. People didn't even want to go see Mission Impossible 7, right? And that was just more of the same.
Yeah, so, yeah, you're not wrong. No, because it's a matter of quality, and the quality just isn't there. And when it's a movie that audiences want to see, like Top Gun Maverick and Spider-Man No Way Home, the audience is there, and they are there at pre-lockdown levels, term I like to use, because the other one, pre-COVID and stuff, that's just giving excuses. Someone did this to us. But anyway, that's my pet peeve. Moving on.
Indeed. We've got where are we at here? Abinash Kala, who says, what if Gal is the princess, Rachel is the evil witch, and the 7 creatures are actually trolls instead of dwarves? And it's some grand PR scheme. Well, that could be. But I think Disney's the one being trolled here. I don't know. Like, this, the funny thing about this Snow White business, and I've said this already, so I apologize for those who've heard it, but I really feel like they've accidentally backed themselves into more of an original idea than anything. Like, at this point, they should just scrap the whole Snow White aspect of it and go, you know what? Let's just call it The Princess and the Bandits or something like that. Because it's really not even Snow White anymore. It's almost like a Snow White story, or they could call it something like a Snow White story or something like that Cinderella story.
Yeah. Snow White in name only, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's not even really the same story, but yeah, it's weird. And we got your pal Russ, who says, hey, Andre, I recently started seeing a Danish girl. Ooh. And I was trying to remember that really funny thing you said about how Danish sounds. Do you remember? I think I do. Isn't that where you said it sounds like you're drunk and you have potatoes in your mouth or some shit like that?
Yeah, for a Norwegian, Danish does sound like for a Norwegian to speak Danish, that Norwegian, he has to get really, really drunk and then put a potato in his mouth. And then what comes out is Danish, because written Norwegian and Danish are practically the same. Pronunciation-wise, they're leagues and leagues apart, because in Norway we actually pronounce the words, whereas the Danes, they eat half of it. So what comes out is like skål, like kind of sounds like that. For more details on this, there is a documentary that you have to watch right here on YouTube. Your girlfriend is going to love it. She may have seen it already. It's a clip from a Norwegian documentary. If you just type in Danish language on YouTube, it should be the very first hit that you get. It's a video with almost 10 million views. It was uploaded 16 years ago, and it's like this fussy picture of a dude who looks like a farmer with like a beard and hat and everything. You want to see it? It's just 4 minutes long. It's a mini documentary you absolutely need to see. Then you'll understand Danish. And yeah, good luck with the Danish girl.
Or just go you, and you'll be good.
Yeah, I don't know how that's going to fly in Danish, but
hey, you might get her wet, or she'll slap you, one or the other.
Sounds too Swedish. Yeah.
I know the joke. Yes. Grimzilla says, I think this is why MonsterVerse will succeed. You can get into it with any film. That and pre-screenings for Godzilla X Kong are very positive so far. I haven't heard anything about the any test screening, but that's good news. And yeah, no, I feel like they've figured out the formula pretty well between King of the Monsters and Godzilla versus Kong. Love it or hate it, they embraced what worked. And I mean, if anything, that's one of the franchises we could use as an example of how you right the ship correctly, regardless of what some of us may personally think about some of the films. Because as I pointed out before, one thing they noted after the first couple movies was like, oh shit, we got a lot of kids buying a lot of these toys. And the section I noticed of toys at most stores for Godzilla toys kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the Godzilla King of the Monster toys were still on the shelves selling at regular price up until Godzilla versus Kong toys replaced them. That is something we haven't seen in how long, guys? Because how often are we posting pictures of Marvel toys on clearance before the movie even comes out? So this is an abnormal thing. Jurassic World was the only thing that was remotely close, and that's because, as I've said before, one thing that is a certainty is that boys, little boys especially, love dinosaurs and monsters. And they stepped back and go, oh shit, we got both in this. And they have ran with it ever since, and good for them, man. And I hope this next one's fun. I liked Godzilla versus Kong. Was it like a 10 out of a 10 Oscar caliber movie? Oh, fuck no, but it did exactly what it needed to do. I don't know if you guys agree or disagree, but I mean, considering the fact that it opened on streaming and in theaters at the same time and still managed to make $500 million, I think there's an argument to be made that that last movie could have made $1 billion if it hadn't been on streaming.
Definitely in the box office, it would have. I think
That's
when
what
it
I
was
mean,
on
yeah.
streaming, it probably did make overall $1 billion in the new subscriptions and what they were able to retain for people.
You might be
watching it.
right there. Yeah.
I think it's a
Andre?
fair assessment. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to that. That's summed it up.
Yep. And then we've got we got this one already. Okay, this is where we're at. Doc Fortune says, I am 100% in agreement with Tom. Start over, new actors, follow the comics, and get it right instead of stitching all this old crap together. Okay, Script, I doubt you were hearing earlier, but Andre we were asked what we would do to fix Marvel specifically, and Andre said just kind of James Bond everything and work from what you got that works. And I was like, oh no, you just scrap the whole fucking thing and you start over. Because I'm like, there was years and years and years of stories that they never even touched. And at this point, it's a dead franchise kind of thing.
Yeah, they
And
skipped
where's
around.
my counter is that if you reboot completely, start completely over, all of those stories of the past 20 movies, you can't go near anywhere. That's now you have a brand new universe that is where you can't touch some of the greatest stories that Marvel ever told.
But they've ruined a lot of those stories too, so they're better off.
Well, it just
Others
depends
they
on
haven't.
where do you mark the delineating point. Kind of like what they did with Highlander 2, and then Highlander 3. Like what do you? What can you do?
It's funny you bring that up because I wish I'd have brought that up instead of Halloween as a better example, because that was where I said I think people will get tired of this. Oh, we're rebooting, but we're keeping some of it here. And this is why I brought up James Gunn's rebooting of the DC universe. It's either he has to do it all or none of it at all, because you can't do this half-ass shit. People get tired of it after a while. And I brought up the confusion of Halloween ends and kills or whatever because of, people weren't sure if Halloween 2018 was a sequel to H2O. They didn't understand that it was another reboot in a series that has already been rebooted 4 fucking times. It gets confusing to people and they just tune out. The average Joe does not give a shit like we do.
Yeah, well, I mean, Marvel has something to its advantage with the multiverse, which is that you can recast, you can bring characters in that have had the same stories, kind of like how they did the Hulk, where they kind of nodded, saying that the other Hulk was the origin, but we're kind of nudging a little bit, fudging a little bit here. You could do that, and then you can just make a very kind of meta joke, which is like, why does the universe keep bending around to you guys to make you pathetic people win all the time? Like, we don't get it that easy. And then we just follow the new cast of those characters.
And I said the benefit is too that if some of these characters we don't have to keep telling the origin stories, at least you can just reestablish them into the universe with the, kind of idea of that we know where Spider-Man's origin begins, right? Like we know where Captain America comes from. You don't have to keep telling that part of the story again, but I don't know. It's an interesting conversation that we had earlier, and I'm not saying any of us are right or wrong here, but it looks like Doc agreed with me. So Kino Reviews says shelve for the next 5 to 10 years with a hard reboot. It worked for Warner Brothers after Batman and Robin. This is what DC and Marvel needs to do. The fan base has been abused enough. Yeah, it did kind of work. It took 2 movies. Well, this was something I reminded people often was that this, again, going with confusion. There was a lot of people that were confused with Batman Begins. They thought it was a prequel to the Michael Keaton verse.
They did. The other part too is that Warner Brothers didn't shelve any Batman projects. They were actively trying to put one in development for 5 to 6 years and couldn't, because it was really difficult to get all their pieces, all their ducks in a row. Wolfgang Peterson was working on a Batman and Superman movie for 3 years. Darren Aronofsky was doing a Batman.
Even Schumacher was working on a 5th movie too.
The rumored Batman Triumphant. They were all in active development, sequentially until Nolan came in with his model of the Tumbler and his take on Batman. And that's what I think Charles Robin was the one that helped him solidify that deal. That's why we got it. I mean, if they could have got Batman Begins in 1999, they would have done it in 1999. They were not looking to wait. And no property wants to wait for that.
Well, and to that point, I was just going to say we've come to a world now where things go much faster than they did then. So I think you can. I'm even thinking like this 2-year break or so, a year and a half break, however long it ends up being, between the last DC movie and Superman Legacy. I think that might just be the amount of time you need, right? To where a 2-year gap now was like 5 years was 10 years ago. Like the internet age and the streaming has really seemed to speed everything up. And as far as like, you know, people remembering things and movies being relevant and shit.
Well, it's also accelerated the attention span to the point where it's almost
that too. Yeah.
And we were saying it was non-existent 20 years ago.
Right. They were claiming us watching TV our whole lives was going to do that. Yeah. Fuck that. Wait till we see what phones did. But Andre, it sounded like you were going to say something there.
No.
Okay. I was just hearing random ghost noise then. But yeah, like that's a problem is the audience does get confused sometimes and they walk away. That's why Batman Begins was one of the lower grossing Batman films because they thought it was a prequel. And then when people realized that it wasn't, and that especially happened when it was on video, that's why The Dark Knight. DVD. Yeah, that's why The Dark Knight ended up being the highest grossing, not only Batman film, but at that time, I think it was the highest grossing movie Warner Brothers had ever had. I think it outgrossed technically without inflation, Batman and Superman, which were their 2 highest grossing before that.
Got really close. If it didn't go over, it got very, very close. But they also
I think Dark Knight beat it.
Probably, yeah.
No, I did because it was their highest grossing movie until was it one of the Harry Potter movies or something?
It was $1 billion movie, and that's when
it was one of the first $1 billion movies. Yes,
when Warner kind of like got this idea that the baseline for Batman is $1 billion. Not realizing that it was a special set of circumstances.
Well, I think the Dark Knight Rises got $1 billion, or at least very close.
That did $1 billion too. Yes.
Yeah.
Spider-Man and Spider-Man 3 and Dark Knight Rises were the problem. If you really want to trace it back, because that was where they looked at these movies and they expected, not only should these movies go up now, unlike it used to be in Hollywood, where if you were lucky if a sequel to do half is the first one, and your third movie did a third of the first one, and so on down the row. This was the first time in history where you had this upward trajectory in sequels, and Spider-Man 3 grossing as much as it did, more than the other two. Same thing with Dark Knight Rising grossing more than The Dark Knight, caused this ripple effect of them thinking, oh yeah, these movies should be able to do this from now on. And then movies like The Avengers and Endgame and so on made it worse. They made them think they're right. This is the way to go.
On the Warner Brothers side, it was Kevin Tsuchihara that realized that formula was like, oh, that's how we can guarantee $1 billion movies. I don't know who it was on the Sony side. Who was at Sony around 2009?
Wasn't Rothman yet, so it would have been like Pascal or who was it? It was more in charge of the. Who's the other guy that was there? I'm trying to remember his name, Andre.
Me too. That's why I'm asking you guys. Because
the tall dude, he's got a really long face. I'm trying to think of his name. Edward comes to mind, but I don't think it's Edward. It's something. We always talked about him though, it's been so long since we've talked about him that I can't remember his name now. But yeah, there was another guy there at that time besides Amy who were kind of overseeing all that shit. Or no, at Fox, did you say, or Sony?
No, Sony. Because Spider-Man was Sony. Yeah. And they had their $1 billion.
Well, that predated Amy, so that had to be what's his face, and I can't think of his fucking name.
Yeah, I'm at a loss right now.
I think his last name started with a P or something like that, too.
Mm-hmm. But regardless, like those two,
Horsey McHorseface.
But regardless, those two kind of perpetuated a formula which has been unfortunately detrimental to Hollywood. I mean, beneficial to Marvel for a short term, but overall detrimental to Hollywood. Inflated budgets.
Sorry, I was trying to look up who their presidents had been. Let's see.
But meanwhile,
was it Tony Vincicara? Was he there then? Is he? Is that who I was thinking of? No. That time it would have been. I can't even find it here. Anyway, fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah, let's move on because we have many more super chats to go through.
We do. Dash Attack says Last Voyage is good, not super woke. Gave it an 8. Film's low budget should help the film. Love the sets and the death by sunlight. You
Yeah.
know, well, thanks
This,
for
of course, is
the.
in reference to the last voyage of the Demeter opening this weekend.
Poorly, I might add. This is one of those ones where I think it would have been better for Universal to open it on Peacock and in theaters at the same time. Because this is a Renfield didn't do that well.
Mhm.
And I think we had a point to be made about vampire movies just kind of falling off vampires in general falling out of popularity right now.
They're in their dip, just like with
Yeah.
zombies and werewolves. So
Yeah, we had talked about that before the show and earlier in the show. So yeah, and then we got Tyrant Lizard King, who has been a member, who just became a member. Thank you so much. Kalakioki says, that's their fault. Whoever thought that initial version of Sonic was good to put the big screen with clearly smoking something. Oh, yeah, okay. This is where we're talking about the effects company, which I think did go out of went bankrupt because of that whole thing, if I remember right.
really, I thought they were brought back for the sequel.
I thought they went bankrupt. Or am I thinking of?
They did, but I don't know that it happened as a result of that first movie.
Oh, okay.
I think it happened after that movie. But yeah, no, it would have been the producer's call. It wasn't like
Right.
It's easy to blame the effect studio, but the problem wasn't the quality of the special effects; it was the design and the makeup house. They didn't create that design. They were basically told, "This is what it needs to look like. Go fix." And so they didn't really do anything wrong. And if they were told, "You need to make good here," but they made the movie that you wanted them, or they made the effects that they were assigned to make. Well, that's not fair.
Yeah. Some producer was doing it has to look real type of gimmick, which is the worst thing you have to say when it comes to movies. Movies aren't supposed to be real. They're supposed to be fun. They're supposed to sell us
unless
on
you're
the
doing
universe
it
they're making.
practical, then
Yeah, exactly. Because that's what freaked people out, is that it looked
too real.
It looked like they're trying to hybrid a real hedgehog with what the cartoon was, and it scared the crap out of people.
Well, and it kind of hit that level because I had brought this point up with Scooby-Doo and Garfield. I was like, first of all, Scooby-Doo looked too weird because it was too like a mixture between too real and somewhat cartoony. It's like you got to go one or the other. You can't have both. And I noticed it then. And then Garfield was the other problem. It was like, okay, Garfield is the only one in this universe that's CGI. Every other animal isn't. Like, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Odie should have been too. Like, his head should be twice the size of the rest of his body. Like, that's the way the cartoon looks. Well, not his head, but his tongue anyway. But you know what I'm saying? Like, that portion, he's disproportionate on purpose. Like, if you're going to do it, go for that. You can't do this halfway in between shit. And that's where Sonic was like that pitch of right in the middle. And you're like, no. It's too uncanny valley. Like, that is like the definition of it. It's like weird and nightmare inducing. Like, yeah, just make Sonic look like fucking Sonic. All right? It's kind of the same thing with the Ninja Turtles. That was the other thing when the Bay Turtles. It's like, why are you trying to make them uber realistic? We know what real turtles look like, and we know the Ninja Turtles are not representing real turtles. We're not dumb.
They're mutants. They can look
but
however
it doesn't
they
matter. Exactly. You can get away with it in your headcanon going, okay, they're mutants, they're whatever. They have a look that works, right? Because once you see them in silhouette, you know it's a fucking Ninja Turtle. You look at one of those silhouettes of the Bay Turtles, you're like, is that a wrestler? Is it Shrek? What is that? Like, you got to be able to recognize it in a silhouette. That's the most important thing. Like the most iconic characters, they always have that going for them. So, but that being said, yeah, that was definitely a snafu on their part. And can you imagine though, if like had Godzilla leaked early enough and they had gotten word of that back in 98, they couldn't have done anything about it back then. Right? Like, that's the difference between then and now. At least they had that ability now with CGI to where you can just go in and fix it. They were fucked back in 98 with Godzilla. Had that leaked, they couldn't change it. There's nothing they could have done at that point. It's too late. So they have, you know, that kind of thing going for them. At least it's not like it used to be in that respect. But yeah, anyway, we went on a tangent there. Cryam says, hearing an earnings question about films was refreshing. Maybe not their POV, but nobody wants to buy a vacation or product after crappy 2-3 hour ad.
Oh, that like that one time where YouTube had ads that were 2 or 3 hours, like the Paul McCartney concert ad.
I don't think that's what he's referring to. I think he's talking about the movie itself being basically like, I think like Haunted
Well,
Mansion would be a
Disney.
great example.
Okay, well, like Disney, most of the movies that they made at post the launch of Disney World were commercials for the Magic Kingdom, essentially. Like
Yeah.
that was their choice. It was like, listen, it costs us too much money to make the movies that we make, especially the animated ones. We're going into the real estate tourist trap business, and that's what they did. And it worked for
Yeah.
them until Bob Iger said, no, I'm not going to be head of a freaking parks company. I want to be head of a studio. I'm going to buy properties to make us the head of a studio.
Well, yeah, we kind of came to the conclusion is that's where Disney went off the rails too, is when they started buying things. Of course, we already knew that. Tipping Barnes says maybe Iger can do some OnlyFans to raise funds. Oh, We Shenanigans says had to do some stuff. Did I miss Andre talking about Last Voyage of Demeter by director of Troll Hunter? If he hasn't already, I would love to hear him talk about how Norwegian Troll Hunter is. Well, he hasn't seen the last Demeter. What? How do you say?
No, I haven't seen the last. Yeah, exactly. Last Voyage of Demeter. I have not seen yet. Of course, I have seen Troll Hunter. Troll Hunter is absolutely fantastic, and it's very, 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 very Norwegian. In it, like the least Norwegian aspect of it is the fact that it's a found footage film. I mean, that's kind of like a Hollywood influence, which was done for like budgeting purposes. But the Troll Hunter in that movie, he's a famous comedian. He's more than a comedian. He's a late night host who's also like great at satire and stuff like that. So almost bordering to the level of performance art sometimes, which just makes everything all the better. So he is someone that's very well known. The sketches of all the trolls, like their designs, are lifted very much so from the designs of Theodor Kittelsen, who illustrated all of the books of the Norwegian fairy tales that every Norwegian will have grown up with. And just the humor, the bureaucracy, and even the cameos, that's the actual PM at the time who does a cameo towards the end there. It's actually he is now heading up NATO. I'm very sorry to say, but that's a different matter. So yeah, Troll Hunter is absolutely fantastic. It's a movie I want to talk about with Chato. I supplied him with a copy of it, so we'll discuss that in more length. And the same director, he made another very Norwegian movie called Tale, about the Norwegian Huldra, which is also one that's more Norwegian, but it's much more difficult to come by if in outside of Norway. But if you can find it, check it out. Tale, that's Thale.
All right. And then we got John Apocalypse, who's been a member for 11 months. Thank you. Mario Trillo says, you guys want to know why Old Man Bad is so bad? It's a fixed trope. It begins with you thinking the guy's not so great and ends with, oh, he's really scary. There's no playing with it. Exactly. Well, that's what I was saying, is you can only get away with it once or twice, and then it becomes old hat. It's kind of like the whole race swapping thing or gender swapping thing. It's like when you do it, when you're the first to do it or the second to do it, okay. But by the third or fourth time, it's like, yeah, you can't keep doing it, or you have to have that payoff. You can't. That was my bigger point, was it would have worked in The Last Jedi had they actually had the proper payoff at the end. You have to have the deserves got nothing to do with it scene, or it doesn't work, right? Like that was the whole point of the Unforgiven analogy. Yeah. I mean, even Logan in his he may die, but he still at least saves the girl and has his heroic, moment at the end, where there's a lot of times now they just want to tear down the old man, and he's just scary and bad by the end, or whatever you want to call it. John Stallcap says it like how they destroyed Quantum Leap. Oh yeah, I haven't seen it yet, but I think you saw a few of them, didn't you, Script Doctor?
Oh, I saw Quantum Leap. It's doesn't have any of the heart of what Quantum
that's
Leap
what you were
was.
saying.
Yeah,
you said it was pretty bad.
And one of my friends who sent in his script, I thought was way better, and it included Scott Bakula in the entire episode. So
yeah, I remember you saying that, which is sad, and just how they treated that. And I can't believe they're getting a second season on top of it all. Master of Trek says, follow up Trek. They could have made Best Trek, but for Alex Kurtzman, when that contract was signed and he was brought on in any capacity, it all died. Yeah, you're not totally wrong. I think he was dead before that. But Jesus Davila sends us a thumbs up. Hit that thumbs up if you haven't already. We need just less than 300 likes, and Sadie gets the rest of this beef stick. It's a fat boy beef stick. Trust me, she wants half of this. She's dying for it. So she needs those likes, guys. We got to get 1K though. I can't give her a beef stick just for 500 likes. It's got to be 1K. Right? That's a special treat. Seth says it's time to talk Conan #1, Bounding into Comics, and me on Substack cited and linked to Midnight's Edge in recent review. Awesome.
Oh,
yeah,
fantastic.
Andre.
Well, yeah, thank you, Seth. I have to read that Substack. Yeah, let's bring up the story from Bounding into Comics. Actually, I have done a review on this issue already, but I haven't had the chance to clip it yet. So let's just find it again in Bounding into Comics, and we can do another mini review, because this issue was so good that it's worth reviewing a second time. The good thing is that this issue has apparently broken sales records for Titan Comics. This was also from Bounding into Comics. That's the first Conan story I found there. So let's bring that one up. Just give me a second.
I was going to say, you're going to have to help me. I'm not finding it here. So
yeah. No, they did like, yeah. So here we didn't. Okay, no, that was the wrong page.
Yeah, you brought up something wrong.
Yeah, no, that was like the search page. Let's see. Here we go. This is the one I meant to find. Jim Sub's new Conan the Barbarian breaks sales records for Titan Comics, and deservedly so. So let's read a little bit what this story has to say then. Titan Comics announced their upcoming Conan the Barbarian issue 1 by Jim Sub. We have interviewed here on Midnight's Edge, and Roberto de la Torre, and it became the most sold comic in Titan Comics history, which is well earned. And you'll recall that Conan started out with Marvel, went to Dark Horse, went back to Marvel, and now they're doing self-publishing at Titan. In a press release, the publisher proclaimed confirmed sales of the initial print exceeded 80,000, making Conan issue 1 the largest selling issue in Titan Comics history, with a second printing planned and a third printing probable. Final sales for this debut issue are expected to exceed 100,000 copies. Now that would be pretty darn good, because I do believe, if memory serves correctly, 100,000 copies was also what Marvel printed of their first issue of Conan back in like 2017 or when it was that they did that. So of course these 80,000 so far, I don't know that they say confirmed sales, so guess maybe they are sales to customers via distributors. I am not entirely sure. Titan Publishing Director Ricky Clayton celebrated, "We are so thrilled with the numbers on issue 1. Our staff and partners at Heroic Signatures worked extremely hard to make the best Conan comic ever, and I think we have achieved that." Well, yeah, of course they have to maintain consistent quality, but look at this art. This right here is art from issue 1. And if you thought that this art is a colorized reprint from the Savage Sword of Conan, I don't blame you. Because this is the art of Rob de la Torre, and that man is John Buscema reborn. Because that is what's so special about this first issue, again, written by Jim Sub, who does the same kind of level of research that Roy Thomas did back in the day. And yeah, Rob de la Torre is just Buscema reborn. And between those two, this issue reads very much like one of the vintage Conan stories. Now, one of the things that I was curious about going into this was, how are they going to tell the story, given that issue 0, the free comic book day, was basically Conan's first going into the world when he's like 14, 15 years old, after the battle at the Vanadium. But that's where the Marvel series picked up. and also where the Dark Horse series picked up. So we have kind of like two alternate retellings of that period. So what are they going to do? Give us a third retelling? In our interview, Jim Sub said that they had something else planned. And indeed they did, because what they did here cleverly, they just jumped 8 years forward in time. And if you know your Marvel chronology, that is an era which is kind of like not shotted out too well, because that would be just around where Roy Thomas left the title and other writers filled in, which means that right there, you have sort of like a dark spot in the Conan chronology where you can fill in a lot of stories. And maybe that's by design, maybe that's by an accident, I don't know, but either way, it works. And this story here is basically Conan coming back to Cimmeria for the first time in many, many years. And he faces a threat he wasn't anticipating. Let's just put it that way. For those who were disappointed with how the winter was handled in Game of Thrones, you want to read this issue right here because it appears to be doing a better job at it. I was riveted by it, and when it came to an end, this first issue, I was like, wait, is it over already? I can't wait for next month now. So yeah, I can't recommend this highly enough. Script Doctor, you're also a fan of Conan. Have you had the chance to check this issue out yet?
I have not, but I've been kind of chomping at the bit doing it because I really like the first comic. I do have some of the older Savage sort of Conan issues, and I'm a big Robert E. Howard fan when it comes to this character specifically. So I'm really happy that it's selling really well. I'm hoping maybe if the strike gets resolved soon, I'll have some immediate disposable income so I can buy a couple of copies. But for now, yeah, I just have to kind of just read other people's reviews and just let that build my excitement for when I can get out there and grab this book. I'll probably actually like go down into downtown Toronto and go to the Silver Snail to get there because I haven't been to that place since pre-pandemic.
Yeah, very cool. So yeah, I look forward to seeing how this story unfolds. They have already announced an expansion. The Savage Sword of Conan is coming back as a separate title. So with any luck, we'll be able to speak to Jim Sub again as that is approaching. Maybe we'll talk to him before as well. As this first storyline draws to a close, I would love to hear a little bit more of what he was thinking while he was writing it, and his creative process once the story is already done and we can get into like more spoiler territory. Right. So yeah, but in the meantime, this comes with my highest recommendations. Go check out Conan the Barbarian issue 1 from Titan Comics. Remember, in an era when all of the other mainstream comics from Marvel and DC, when they all decline in quality, when manga is what's really selling, if you have something else that actually is real comics, and it's really important to go out and support it. Show the entire market that this is the way to do it. And I submit that this comic right here, this is how to do it. So this is absolutely something that you want to check out. And if you like it, continue supporting it. You'd actually be doing the entirety of the comic book industry a favor.
Yeah, and we have a sponsor here for those who may not know called Entertainment Earth, and they have some really great stuff. Speaking of Conan, they have this posed Conan figure up for pre-order right now.
Oh, nice.
And if you use our link, we actually benefit from it. So there you go. The link's in the chat. And here's another one I thought you might get a kick out of here, Andre. We got Rambo coming. Look at that.
Cool.
I'm going to have to order both of those.
I know. Well, we not only have Rambo First Blood, but we got First Blood Part 2 Rambo. We got both of them.
Nicer.
So I'll share the links for those in the chat as well. So yes, thank you to Entertainment Earth for being a sponsor, and do check out those figures. And I'll be periodically sharing toys in the chat and other places. So check them out. And thank you for that question. And then we got Toxic Man Flu in the house who says, "Remember the Tim Conway show, Paul? I knew we were going to miss one for Paul. That had some really funny moments. I'm sure he will, or you can ask him again on Sunday if he joins us." Sorry about that, Toxie. I didn't mean to miss that. Midnight Sun says Warner Brothers should pause Brave and Bold and let Pattinson finish being the sole cinematic Batman. Normies are not going to get the Elseworld label. That's if they even do any more of those movies.
I don't know if Pattinson's film has survived.
Yeah, I've been hearing some. Well, what have I been saying for a while, guys? And that's why I'm not surprised if this is true. If it's kind of being pushed off and less likely as the days go by. What have you heard, Script?
What about the Penguin? How far did that get in production before the strike came? Did they manage to film it all, or
According
was
to
it shut down midway?
Well, according to Paulie, who knew somebody deep in the production, they did finish filming.
Okay.
But that was the thing, is before the strike, that's what I was hearing, is a lot of this was going to be dependent on how well the Penguin performed for HBO Max. Now, anyway, Script, you were about to say.
All I'll say is that the only thing I've heard confirmed from a couple of other people, based on the fact that I had some friends on the picket line streaming, is that they finished principal photography, but it's still up in the air if there's any B-roll or secondary stuff or any looping required to be done. So everything is kind of on pause, and I think all that's been happening since then is they've just been doing as much editing as they possibly can on these episodes to get them into their most final position, so that when the strike ends, showrunners and the talent can come back and give it a look-see to figure out what they have to refine before they can drop it. And that's only if Warner Brothers even cares at this point. They might just be like, nope, this is how it is. This is how it's going out. Throw it on Max and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and I get it. That the Batman has its fans. Trust me, every damn time I say something on one of these shows or I post something on Twitter, I get bombarded. And look, the thing is as we were just saying before about the whole $1 billion thing, as much as some people don't want to admit it, that is the way that these things work. When the Batman failed to hit $1 billion, especially right after Spider-Man No Way Home, that caused a lot of people to go, well, maybe we have to kind of step back and take another look at this thing. And Zaslav said, okay, we can do a Batman 2, but it has to be with these caveats. And that was last we kind of knew on that front. And that was that the movie had to be 2 hours. It couldn't be as dark and dour, and they had to work on the chemistry with the characters, among a few other things. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how this pans out. But I do understand what you're saying here as far as Elseworld stuff. It's going to get kind of confusing because that kind of takes us to the Wonder Woman story, Andre. I don't know if we wanted to talk about that real quick.
Gal Gadot. Gal Gadot apparently just admitted what I speculated, didn't she? Or not?
Kind of. We both, we kind of both were in agreement on that Script, because you and I had said the same thing. We knew the last time she had any conversations with them was right after Patty Jenkins got dumped, and at the same time they also would have talked to Cavill and Affleck, and and according to Gunn, he talked to Affleck about directing, and he's like, "Oh, we're happy to work together again," and Affleck's like, "Fuck no, I ain't directing no movie." So I think, I think this is it could also be that this was a conversation they had so long ago before Gunn even knew exactly what was going to happen yet. So what is your speculation on that? Go ahead, Script Doctor. Because what we're hearing, though, for those who may not know, is that basically some sources inside of Warner Brothers said, yeah, Wonder Woman 3 ain't happening. So,
yeah, that's what I knew. Wonder Woman 3 wasn't happening. They were trying to figure out they're still writing what they were going to do with the Themyscira prequel series, or whatever series it is. It's being rumored as a prequel. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. We'll know soon enough.
Yeah.
But no, it basically just read to me because since she's been doing the press before the strike for her Heart of Stone, and every time they've asked her about DC stuff, her story's been kind of somewhat consistent, but the way she delivers it has been kind of off. And this goes into a rumor that some other filmmakers have said, is that they like Gadot. She's charming. She's wonderful. She speaks multiple languages, but her comprehension might be impaired a little bit as a result of that, because she learned these languages later in life, and that's why she might be misunderstanding certain things. So I think what ended up happening is that she got in there. She's probably saying, I want to be Wonder Woman 3. And James Gunn and Safran are saying, we loved you as Wonder Woman, but we want to work with you in the future, but we're going on somewhere. we're going in a different direction. And I think she probably interpreted that as she's probably being brought along on that different direction. And I don't think that's actually the case there. There's a lot of Hollywood speak of like the what's known as the shadow promise, where they'd say, yes, we're going to work with you. And they're not going to confirm in what capacity you're going to be working with them in, just that they're going to be working with you. And it's up to you to take a look at that and interpret what it means. And then when the truth hits you, you usually are either very, very pleased because they actually wanted more out of you, or you're incredibly disappointed and feel abused because they don't actually really need you at all. They're just attaching your name to it to appease certain people either in the audience or certain people at the studio level.
Andre, anything?
No, that's exactly what I thought as well the whole time, that this is some kind of misunderstanding. I did not for a moment really think that he was going to bring her back as Wonder Woman. It had to have been something else, some kind of misunderstanding, that he gave her the standard "we're dumping you" speech and she just didn't understand it. And you're just kind of like confirming exactly what I thought of it.
Yeah, it's not the first time. Heck, even Joss Whedon during Justice League and then post all the scandal was talking about how he didn't think that Gal Gadot understood what he was asking at times. And of course, she bit back and saying she perfectly understands. But I've been hearing enough stories since that time up until now that every once in a while she probably does understand. Is probably very coherent, but maybe just doesn't listen, or maybe is so excited or has her own dreams.
The other side of this could be that she's trying to push for this to happen.
Yeah.
And she may be trying to push for Gunn to say something about it too. And that's the thing, is some people are running with it like Gunn has comment. No. This is just inside sources at Warner Brothers. And I mean, again, they could be wrong and she could be right. But Six just sent me a timeline in the background here. And we're pretty much right, Script. Like the last time there was any movement on this was back in December of last year up until now. Like this is the first time it's been talked about. So I think you and I are right that she has not talked to these guys since way back then. And in that moment, and that's when Wonder Woman 3 was killed, because Patty Jenkins kind of flagged that. Like she's like, well, I was more than willing to rewrite, but they said, no, we're good. Well, they haven't hired anybody else to be writing any Wonder Woman movies. Have you heard of any announcements of anybody? Well, no, the writers have been on fucking strike for one thing for the last 100 days. So that's a big portion of that time. But even prior to that, we heard of no new names being brought in for writing on this movie. And at that moment, that told me that this project is dead. And the way the gal had worded it at that time, it almost sounded like she was moving on from Wonder Woman. So I don't get it. I think it's both. I think it's some of it might be some misinterpretation, and the other side of it is she's trying to get the conversation started again. Because let's be real, what was this whole interview about when she did this? She was talking about a movie she just did straight for Netflix. What has she done?
It's dropped today, and I don't think anybody's actually been watching it.
That's my point. She hasn't done anything of any real value in the ever since she's outside of her Wonder Woman roles. That Cleopatra movie has been sitting in development hell for how long now? And I mean,
4 years?
I think she's just getting desperate because she knows that this is at the end of the line, kind of a thing. And she's getting to that point in Hollywood where if you ain't made it by 40, it's kind of
the other part too. It's like, not for lack of trying, and all the best for her, but she's done a number of movies with some significant name power behind them, and they've never hit.
No.
And that's not just her, but that's also like, the writing and the directing and whatnot. But she was in a movie with John Hamm and nobody saw it.
Well, and even she was in the biggest hit she's probably had has been The Death of the Nile, and that was a disappointment compared to the first one. So, I mean, I'm trying to think of any other movie that she's been in that has hit at all. I mean, I can't even really compare her to The Rock. You know what I mean? Like with The Rock, at least I can say, in ensemble films,
wasn't she like in some of the Fast and the Furious or something?
Like one or two of them, but like that was
her.
That was way back when, though. Yeah.
Yeah. No, like, listen, I know she has a fan base. They love her. She's in the same type of boat as Henry Cavill. She hasn't led a film. Actually, she's had more opportunities to lead a film that nobody has seen than Henry Cavill.
But I would argue Henry has a much bigger fan base at the end of the day.
He probably has a much bigger fan base, but I'm hoping that they turn up for whatever project he has next that he's leading that isn't an existing IP, because they turned in for The Witcher first season, and then they tried to hang on for season 2 and 3. But You know, he was barely in those things. So yeah, it's kind of funny how a lot of the actors that Zack Snyder picked for his roles, that's not Ben Affleck or J.K. Simmons, were not powerhouses to actually support or hold a movie on their own without the crutch that is the IP.
Oh wow, we have some actual breaking news here, and this isn't even the fun. Not even that kind of breaking news. This is real breaking news. I don't even know why Blumhouse is doing this. Evidently, they're debuting a Halloween TV series next Halloween.
For 2024?
Yeah.
Why?
That's what I'm thinking.
Is this some kind of like anthology thing that has nothing to do with Michael Myers, or is it like going to be like a Michael Myers series?
No idea. All that I have is, I'll show you here in a second here. This is all I've got. It looks like something that was posted. I can't even confirm if it's real or not, to be honest with you. I mean,
it's bloody disgusting to verify because they are usually pretty on top of everything.
Yeah, all I got is this icon here. I'm looking around to try and see if it's legit. Well, they did say there could be a sequel ready for 2024, but I don't see anything about it. Also making a television series. Okay, maybe.
Well, you're kind of like in the middle of a strike right now. They have
called Season of the Boogeyman.
Reference to Season of the Witch right there.
But Boogeyman would be Michael Myers.
Well, I look forward to learning more about this when the strike is over. Until then, I don't trust anything.
Yeah, I'm really kind of...
Like, I don't trust anything that's being announced between now and...
Yeah, I'm going to take this with a grain of salt.
After the strike.
I'm definitely going to take this with a grain of salt for now until I can get some kind of confirmation on it. Because I don't know, especially after the last Halloween. Yeah. All right, yeah, because I'm not seeing... Let's see, Peacock. Did that come from Twitter, or where did it come from?
Yeah, what's the source of this?
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on Peacock in the last day or so, so maybe it's fake. I'm gonna go with speculative at best right now. But thank you to the listener who sent that to me. But I'm not seeing on anything, for the last week on their fucking Twitter. So I'm gonna chalk that up to bullshit for now. All right, moving on. Pending confirmation. I'm really in the not probably true camp at this point. Warner Brothers should have... Oh, we got that one already. Paulus Plain says, if you like the shows, go to a live Iron Maiden concert. Bruce Dickinson, Scream for Me Brazil, Scream for Me Rock in Rio. I've never been a huge Iron Maiden fan. They're all right.
Good stage shows. I guess I've never seen them in live.
Yeah, neither. Well, yeah.
Concert actually. That may surprise some since I'm a very avid concert goer.
Right. And they'd seem like they'd be in your wheelhouse. Matthias Fredrickson says, go Val. How do you say that?
Yeah, good Val. You actually did really well. That means good evening.
Anyone remember when Snyder revealed his DCEU plan and was to be based on the Kabbalah occult Tree of Life? That was really weird.
I don't remember this.
I don't know.
I have to admit that I know extremely little about the Kabbalah. Script, do you remember anything about this? And do you know anything about the Kabbalah? And assuming yes to the two previous questions, would Snyder doing something on the Kabbalah Tree of Life have been a good fit?
Well, what I know of the Tree of Life is pretty vague, unfortunately. I've never really come across too many stories that deal with it. I think that's Snyder overcompensating for his own ineptitude. He's trying to find something auteurist, like that would make him the auteur that he wishes he were. And what better place to do than the Tree of Life? And I remember that was a pretty popular thing at the time because I think Hugh Jackman did The Fountain, which dealt with the Tree of Life.
I
And
also haven't seen that. Like the Tree of Life in Jewish tradition. I'm not familiar with that Kabbalah or anything like that at all, to be completely honest. What I know of Tree of Life, to me, that is Yggdrasil, the world tree in Norse mythology. Is it anything like that or completely different?
could be, again, like it's not something I've heavily studied on. I haven't come across many stories that did it. Even in film school, we briefly touched on it, and it didn't last long enough for me to unfortunately retain. But I mean, when you're dealing with something that's kind of the Tree of Life is a subject that's usually used more so in very, very indie, low concept short films, features of that nature, and that doesn't quite reconcile with a high concept world of Detective Comics. But yeah, I don't know. Like even in my own, like, because again, I'm Jewish, but I'm not a practicing one, so I have heard about it, among my family members. But it's yeah, unfortunately, no, it was never anything that kind of resonated or stuck with me. So I think that'd be, I can see where he'd want to do that to try and make a heady impact, but I don't think I think he probably knows less about it than I do at this point.
All right.
There you go. Dash Attack says Godzilla X Kong might be the big blockbuster we're going to get unless the strike can resume.
The last big bluster.
Oh, the last one. Maybe.
Well,
I don't know
we
about
get
that.
a Japanese Godzilla movie coming up.
Well, there's a few other things that got done. But you mean you're not looking forward to the hilarity that will ensue in the Marvels? Anyway, Mecha J says, do you think VFX wokers, I think he means workers, will get their union? I think so.
They'll most likely join IATSE.
Honestly, I was surprised. This is what I said last night's script, and I wish you were there because I was asking. I'm like, I can't believe they're not already in like the animation, or there isn't already a visual effects union. I did not know there wasn't one.
Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that there are different types of contract workers. There's still a number of other things that aren't in union that you'd otherwise think they are, like, but IATSE would be the best one. IATSE is the other union that also gets a certain percentage of residuals based on their own negotiations, based on the companies that they work for. One of the I mean, listen, this visual effects companies have a massive amount of turnover that they otherwise shouldn't have. And it's been happening only mostly in recent years because there's been certain demands of powerful studios to basically have them do full work in the previous stage and then get them to redo it. And that's burning out their own coffers and their own resources and their own staff. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. This is coming as a result of the fact that they're being, all those studios, effect studios, are being abused by the bigger studios. And the other part too is that these studios don't want to be folded as a result of that. So they figure if they can unionize, they can create a negotiating power that prevents them from being abused the way certain people at Disney have abused them over the last 6-7 years. And primarily it has been Disney. I never hear these stories coming out of Sony or Warner Brothers or Paramount or Amazon or any of them like that. So it's really like one studio is causing this to happen.
Funny how that works.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right. Well, check into Midnight's Edge After Dark last night. We talked more about the Marvel VFX guys. Hyperguyver 2 says August has been a good month for Sword and Sorcery with Conan #1 and Fire and Ice #1. Yeah, I saw that Fire and Ice business too.
Yeah,
it's funny because it's not really taken off in features or television, but for comics, it seems to be doing well, right, Andre? You're about to say?
Yeah, I was about to say I'm excited for reading Fire and Ice #1 as well. I see that it's out. I haven't had the chance to pick it up yet, but looking forward to reading it. Big fan of Fire and Ice. Also written by Roy Thomas, that original animation by Ralph Bakshi. Robert Rodriguez, for the longest of time, was wanted to do a live action remake of it, but Harvey never freaking let him. kept
They got pretty
giving
close,
him
I
up
thought, though,
to do.
don't they?
They got really close. It was
Mm.
always going to be his next movie after this one. His next
Mm.
movie after this one. But Harvey Weinstein kept giving him like another new movie after this one that he had to do. So he never got around to Fire and Ice, which is a freaking tragedy because a Robert Rodriguez helmed Fire and Ice, and it would be been like filmed in this brand new visual style that would have, okay, I don't know exactly what it would have looked like, but just think what 300 did. So not like 300, but
I think it would have been Bakshi come
Yeah.
to life.
exactly, that's exactly what it would have been. It would have been Bakshi and Frazetta come to life, because what he did, apparently he found like a way
Through
to film
Vasetta,
it
yeah.
so that he could film it in his backyard, more or less, but he'd apply this layer to it that made it look like a Frazetta painting come to life. And the reason I brought up 300 is forget exactly how it looked, but kind of that approach to it. That's what he was going to do, but only make it look Frazetta.
That loyalty to the vision, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I think it could have been something. I mean,
It really could have been something. I mean, it's a freaking tragedy that Rodriguez wasn't able to do Fire and Ice.
Well, here's hoping we get a 4K of Fire and Ice one of these days. It'd be nice.
That'd be something.
We Shenanigans says that if Thale is the 2012 film with Silji,
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one.
it's available in Tubi, at least in the US.
Yeah,
I got a Surfshark it.
Yeah, I was at the world premiere of that one actually with the director present. He was. I was invited to the after party, but I regrettably couldn't make it. So I have to find some other way to reach out to him. The director, that is. Because this is the movie from, to be clear, what they were talking about. This is another movie from the director of The Last Voyage of the Demeter, who's also the director of Trollhunter. And moving on from there, ActionCom says, Script, what's your take on where the guns or Ackroyds come from?
Well, Ackroyd comes from basically sketch comedy, as Paul Chato was talking about, live shows, and the interactions of that. Ackroyd also is a huge research enthusiast with regards to like, Dragnet is one of the big ones. The supernatural stuff, which he got from his father. He has a whole bunch of actual interests, and he's actually like a really well-defined human being, as eccentric as he can be. And I've found that a lot of the people that came out of his generation have a lot of those traits. They have hobbies that are outside of the industry that fuel the creative outlets. When it comes to Gun, he's a writer, and he's a guy who has a lot of similar things. He has other hobbies that are besides movies that he uses to influence him. And also, Gun came from essentially trauma. Like, he's pure indie, gross indie, indie films. And I think that's that. The other part too is also the work ethic. I mean, that's the biggest difference.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the things, like, one of the reasons why I was unable to make Mead last night is I was talking with Robert Meyer Burnett because we had something we wanted to work on. And it's like when I talk to other people that are in my peers for something of similar, they usually say, "Oh, we can do that tomorrow." They push it off because there's something more important that they think they want to do, and it's usually more social than it is actual work. And I think that's also an aspect that's kind of lacking. Like, I'm very fortunate that my girlfriend has a job that she loves, and she likes to be able to do whatever she can, so that whenever I get an opportunity and we have to say, "Oh, I got to take this," she's not bothered by it because she can go do something. I know other people who are like, "Yeah, can't do it. My husband or my wife or my boyfriend or girlfriend has plans tonight. We're going to have to push this aside." And it's like, well, okay, well, if that's what's more important to you, that's fine. I'm all big on family and whatnot. But I mean, if you want to make something good, if you want to do this, it has to come with a little bit of sacrifice. And there is a great deal of generation that'd rather phone it in than sacrifice their party time.
There you go. And then we've got Paulus Plain, who says, Script Doctor PhD, please send us a picture of Canadian poutine on X. Thank you.
One day.
All right. And Action Com says, I am the last super chat. And that you are as of right now. So thank you so much, Action Com. And thank all of you out there for listening today. Thank all the mods for their work. And I guess I'd be a jerk if I didn't give Sadie the treat. Even though you guys failed to get us to 1K likes. We got 827. I guess that's enough.
Next time, we always have Monday.
Yeah. Sadie, where you at? Come here. A treat? She'll come running. You want a treat, don't you? Yeah. A special treat? Yeah.
There's a good dog.
She was taking a nap. So she's like, will you wake me up? Oh, treat? I'll take that. There you go. She got her treat. There you go, guys. All right. Yeah, I won't be a jerk. Of course, I was going to give it to her, but I got to get some incentive out of it, you know?
Yeah, of course. Got to try. All right. With that, be sure to check out all of our amazing panelists. Check out Script Doctor. Check his Patreon. Link, of course, is in the description. Check out Mr. Paul Chato. Check out Cultured Casino. Script, on the way out the door, is there anything in particular you would like to plug?
Well, I'm actually kind of working on a couple of reviews right now. I've started. There's a show called Heels, which actually is has a lot of Taylor Sheridan aspects to it, but they do it better. So I'm going to be doing a compare and contrast of that on my Patreon in the coming days. So look out for that. Still plugging away on that Barbie review, which I really trying to get out of my system and out of my head. So that's pending. And yeah, that's pretty much all I've got on the horizon right now that I'm aware of and able to confirm. So yeah, follow me on Twitter, X, or whatever it is to see where I'll turn up next.
It's a zombie lie.
All right, fantastic. Tom, anything people need to be on the lookout for over the course of the weekend?
I don't know. I got like 20 freaking things to do here. Well, I'm supposed to be hopping up by Culture was wanting me on his show, so I'm going there from here. And then we've got a video I'm going to have to try and figure out how we're going to work on. And then 6 says, what day and time is the member stream? That's another good question.
Tuesday. It's going to be Tuesday because
now it's going to be Tuesday.
It's absolutely packed, and I cannot see how I can reasonably fit a member stream in there, not without it having major other disruptions. But Tuesday should be perfectly fine, shouldn't it, Tom?
It should. If I can get some work done, maybe I'll do something at least on the Mead side of things and work something out, maybe. But yeah, otherwise I've been trying to get an A-rated B movies together with Script Doctor, but I'm wanting to do TMNT, so I'm trying to get Razor Fist.
Oh yeah, that'd be great conversation with him.
So we'll see what we can work out with that. I don't want to make any promises because I haven't heard back from him yet on that. And yeah, so all right. With that though, hopefully Tuesday we'll have the member stream, and other than that, you can expect a video at some point, hopefully this weekend, the next day or so.
Yeah,
if I can get to it. And with that, as Andre says,
it is time for some koalas in the rain.
Koalas in the rain, koalas in the rain, no fucks given, koalas